Welcome to the freezing cold Wednesday edition of the all-new Sports Cage. It's brought to you by Regina Motor Products. Dents or dings? Visit the RMP SGI-accredited full-service collision center and body shop, Regina Motor Products. Book today. It's Maz in for Barney. Stay warm. The extreme cold warning is still in effect for Regina and pretty much all of southern Saskatchewan. High today if we get there, and I don't think we are. Minus 24, but with the wind chill feeling like minus 34. Tonight, the low minus 33 with the wind chill minus 47. Global warming, right? Tomorrow, sunny, high minus 22. The wind chill is going to be all over the map. Could be anywhere from minus 35 to minus 44, just depending on where you are and what time it is. Right now, minus 27 with the wind chill feeling like minus 35. We've got 3 hours to talk sports. Lots happening on the show today. In just a couple of minutes, we're going to check in with Cody Janzen. He runs the X account, World Hockey Report. It's a good follow on Twitter. We'll talk Four Nations Cup. Canada, Sweden tonight in Montreal. T-minus 3 hours and 52 minutes till puck drop. And for a lot of people, I think this is going to be one of the most overanalyzed hockey tournaments in a lot of our lifetimes, because people are already off the rails with this thing, and we haven't even played 1 second. It's nuts. Guest number 2, Eric Francis, will go inside the NHL for Southie Mainline, the new king of trucks. Eric is actually in Montreal with his son. I think they're doing a little family bonding trip. He's actually going to the game tonight, so we will check in with him. It'll be interesting to see, and we'll ask him, because Jordan Binnington is tonight's starting goaltender. And Doug Armstrong, who is the lead management, or the lead of the management team, is the St. Louis Blues president, general manager, basically Jordan Binnington's boss. But in a short tournament like this, if a goalie loses, if you're John Cooper, the head coach, you've got to go to Adin Hill. I don't think you can give a guy 2 games to get it together. Could be one and done. And we're also going to get to double talk. Darian Durant will join us just after 5. He wasn't on with us Monday. We got him for today. It's for CampbellSafety.com. We'll get Darian's thoughts not only on his Philadelphia Eagles winning the Super Bowl, but the Riders and free agency was where we go right now. It's the big story. Free agency officially yesterday. Some of the signings trickled out. The Riders busy, according to some, not busy enough, according to others, depending on who you follow on social media. A lot of big moves. Some more big moves today. We didn't get that wide receiver yet that a lot of us wanted, that even Darian said we could use. But we did get a pretty good offensive lineman today in Sean McEwen from the Calgary Stampeders. Jeremy O'Day had a press conference earlier, and our Dave Thomas, the voice of the Saskatchewan Roughriders, had a chance to catch up with Jeremy, and we got this.
Pleased to be joined by the Vice President of Football Operations of your Saskatchewan Roughriders and the General Manager, Jeremy O'Day. And we had an opportunity to catch up prior to the opening of the CFL free agent negotiation period. So if you go ahead and you look back at your roster, say 3 weeks ago to where you're at today, what do you see when you look at that roster?
I think for the majority of it, we've gotten the key guys back that we targeted in free agency of our own. On the defensive line, obviously there was some change on the defensive line with the guys that we signed. Ed and Mike Rose and Shane Ray is going to change our defensive line from what it looked like last year. And again, those are situations that came up prior to free agency that we just thought was a great opportunity for us to get some good players. I think offensively we have a lot of continuity coming back from where we finished the year. We weren't super active on offense because now we have a core receivers that worked together for a year. And last year coming into the season, there was a lot of question marks in the receiving core of, are some of the young guys going to step up? And with Keyshawn and Meyer stepping up, that's good to know that we have the continuity there. Obviously, we changed the quarterback room a little bit with Ed and Jake and Tommy, which changed the dynamic of that room. But it's free agency. It's ups and downs, and there's ebbs and flows. And some guys you think you're going to get back, and you don't. And then there's other guys that you didn't think you would get back that you did. So it kind of changes as it goes on.
You mentioned the quarterback room. Obviously, there's only one player that can be on the field at a time. So how do you envision that room sorting itself out?
Well, Trevor's our starter. I think everyone knows that. And really, when we talked about this offseason, we just wanted to a veteran backup that's played a lot in our game, and that's why we decided to trade for Jake and get Jake signed. And then just going through free agency, I don't necessarily know that we 100% had targeted Tommy, but just as time went on and we talked about it more and more, it just made sense for us to bring him in with. Part of it was, kind of tired of seeing him run against us a little bit because he's had a lot of success against us in short yardage. But, we at the end of the day, we felt like he's a weapon and that we could utilize him, in maybe different ways. So I'll let Mark figure out how they all fit together. But, it's nice to have a good quarterback room. And Jack Cohen's another guy that we're not giving up on. I know the natural thought is that, what does that mean for him? But we're still very high on Jack Cohen, and he'll have an opportunity to come and compete as well.
So staying with the quarterbacks, we spoke with Tommy Stevens yesterday, and he mentioned the fact that he's more than just a running quarterback. How do you see him fitting in then?
Well, he comes in with a mindset when he comes in short yardage, and so what we can do with him more than short yardage is it's going to be up to Mark whether he has packages or what his plan is with him. But in short yardage, it's in particular against us, it was you're almost just saying, hey, they're going to get the first down on short yardage, and it used to be that way. Like I think in the last 5 to 7 years, there's short yardages. There's been times where it's actually you're not sure if you're going to get it, and not necessarily just us, but other teams too. If you look at our game against Toronto, I don't know how many times we stopped them on the goal line last year, but it usually didn't happen 10 years ago when it was 2nd and 1, 3rd and 1. It was usually a kind of a gimme, and so it feels like when he goes out that he's going to have a high percentage chance of getting the first down. And not only that, you can if you're in second and 2, 2nd and 3, you can actually still utilize them and move the chains. So, again, a lot of it was, he'd go out and you just hope that we'd tackle him in some cases. And he had some long runs against him that were hard to watch. But he's excited to be here. He's really excited to be a rider, and we're excited to have him.
That's Saskatchewan Roughrider General Manager Jeremy O'Day from earlier today, talking free agency. We'll have more J.O. and Dave throughout the show. Now, a couple of signings that came out that I think a lot of us are quite happy with, because there was questions. We lost some offensive linemen that have gone to other teams, but we only really signed Philip Gagnon. Then it came out that we signed Sean McEwen, a 3-time All-Star, played a good chunk of his career, the last, I think, 5 years with the Calgary Stampeders. This should lock down... if he's not the starting center, there's something up, because he was great in Calgary. He is a natural center and good. Colson, were you as excited as I was when you saw the news come through that McEwen's now a rider?
Yeah, because like you were saying, that's really the last big position. Yeah, there's a lot of us that want a big play receiver, but that would kind of be a luxury at this point, because we've got a good receiving core as is. We've got good running backs. The offense can make things happen as is. Just having another solid offensive lineman to really solidify that spot makes this thing all complete, outside of, again, having a luxury and a home run hitting wide receiver.
Now, the one thing that, and I don't know what general manager Dave Dickinson is doing that is going to help head coach David Dickinson on the field, but Sean McEwen, out of all the guys that you're going to let walk to free agency, he is one of those, like, you don't worry about a Sean McEwen on your offensive line. You worry if he's not there, because that's a huge person to replace. Another head scratching move by them, letting him go, but maybe they have a backup plan in place. It doesn't look like they've signed somebody else. And Curtis, it's funny, you're a guy that puts together a lot of the highlight packs that we use here on the SportsCage stream and the Riders stream. Kalen LeBourne for the Ottawa Redblacks was the guy that replaced Arquel Armstead after Armstead was cut, and you're like, I think we're sending you to day one of training camp with a camera and a microphone to go in the dressing room, and I want you to talk to both of them to be like, hey, do you two know each other? Is it all good in the hood here? Or like, what is this uncomfortable at all?
That's a very interesting dynamic, to say the least. And I feel like there was already a little bit of competing for that kind of starting running back role already here, and you get another guy in there. I mean, a little bit of competitiveness for the position doesn't hurt, but it is very interesting because I felt like we already kind of had two guys that were kind of competing for that role, and even like Hudon was there, like a Canadian guy as well that we could rely on as well when AJ wasn't available and Raquel wasn't either. It's like I felt like we already kind of had that buttoned up, but interesting signing. Maybe there's something that we don't know, but very intriguing.
Well, and maybe that is because a lot of people on social media are going, we signed another running back and we already had 4 or 5. Maybe we don't see all the pieces on the chessboard right now. Maybe there is something happening. Like Armstead is under contract. Does that mean when day one, when camp opens, he's there? Like, is something wrong? Is somebody hurt? Okay, so Frankie Hickson technically is a free agent. To my knowledge, he hasn't been signed by anybody else, and he's not signed by the Riders. So does that mean he just walks and he's not in the plans anymore? Unless something changes, like we don't know.
Yeah, maybe the signing maybe solidifies that another team might go for Hickson and be like, oh, well, obviously the Riders aren't necessarily interested, or at least not very interested. He already got 4 guys kind of on the wings ready to go. But yeah, it's hard to say. I mean, there's obviously going to be some dust that settles after training camp too, and who's going to be starting and who's going to be waiting on the edge, waiting for their chance.
Probably the one signing, which I don't necessarily know that a lot of people in Rider Nation were upset when it was announced that Anthony Lanier was going to sign with the Toronto Argonauts. I think a lot of us really liked Anthony Lanier, but he just couldn't stay healthy. You can't pay somebody 160 or 170 grand and only play 12 games. Like you can't.
What does Luke always say? Your best ability is availability.
Yeah. And so for to see him go, okay, that's fine. Probably the one that is a bit of a head scratcher today, because I thought he was just coming into his own, rounding out to be a really good force on the defensive line. Miles Brown signing a deal with the Calgary Stampeders. Colson, I can just tell by the look on your face. To me, if anything, as far as somebody that improved so much, even with all the controversy around Miles Brown last year, from where he started to where he ended, he was a dominant force in some of those games down the stretch.
Yeah, and I forget if he got just fined or suspended, but yeah, outside of that, he was there for every game. He was bringing his all every game. He was putting the work in and doing a good job, and we had him on the cage for, I think it was about an hour for the one day, and great guy, very likable, very personable. Yeah, so that's one where I'm kind of like, I know, like, it's been shouted from the mountaintops this whole time, like, part of the whole building of this culture and this roster is like getting quality guys, and he seems like a really quality guy. So that's the part where I'm kind of like, this guy felt like he fit the mold you were looking for, so guess there must just not have been seeing eye to eye on contracts or something and couldn't get it done, is my guess, because it seems like, again, he fit the bill of what we were looking for in a player.
Yeah, he didn't get suspended. Max fine for that hit on Streveler.
Yeah, and I mean, we debated that for weeks on the SportsCage and all of that. But by the end of the season, there were times when Miles Brown was going in and he was blowing up plays. He was blowing up other teams' offenses. Yeah. And I'm like, to me, it was one of the most improved riders from the start of the season to the end of the season. So, and this isn't the scientific list. So Brian Cox, who is a free agent, also part of that D line, as far as we know, still not signed. We don't know if there's an offer out to him or if he's got offers from other teams. Does he come back? Because now, if we're just going addition, subtraction, yes, they've added Mike Rose and they've added Shane Ray, but I think there's still spots there. Micah's back. So what do we do? Because Christian Albright, as we saw earlier today, who did Albright sign with? Because he's gone, and he was another one that had, I think, a very solid year last year. A guy that we, bided his time, and once he got on the roster, just seemed to get better game in, game out.
He signed with the Red Blacks.
Yeah. And as J.O. said, you're never going to sign all your free agents. It's just not going to happen just because everybody wants a raise and all of that. And so you are going to. So a lot of the guys that have gone, I'm okay with. The Miles Brown one today was, like I said, the one head scratcher of all the moves to be like, I liked it. And maybe it was a matter of, hey, maybe we had an offer into him and the Stamps just came to him and said, here's more money.
Yeah, money is definitely a factor for players signing anywhere. I don't know. You can ask Eugene Lewis.
Yeah, but I would, out of all of the teams, anybody signing with Calgary, unless they're being told something behind closed doors or being shown a plan or who else is eventually going to, basically how their chessboard is going to look here in a few weeks. If there's one team that is just surrounded in uncertainty. And Charleston said it. And when Charleston said it a couple of weeks ago, it's not like Charleston has an axe to grind against the Stamps. He played a lot of good years there, made a lot of money, did his thing, became a CFL star, but he's also he would know roster construction. He would know if there's pieces there outside of the quarterback, like what else is going to be there. Said, this running back thing with the Riders, I don't think is done yet. I think there's more pieces to unfold. Maybe we're not seeing it right now because if we count it, that's 5 running backs. And at times last year, we struggled to get 2 on the roster.
Maybe we're running double running back sets instead of double tight end sets now. Maybe that's the play.
Nice. we're going wishbone from the late 80s, early 90s.
Exactly. To be fair, though, we've got a few big running backs, so some ground and pound from back there, that'd be scary if it's effective. But I am saying all of this in jest because we don't know until training camp rolls around. We don't see them actually rolling out in the field there.
But we talked about it late last year. The Edmonton Eskimos had 3 running backs on the roster most of the season, and then would just start. And now there were games where they were behind and they couldn't run the ball, but if they could get up on you and get a lead, it was hard to track him down. We'll dive further into this as the show moves on. Rider free agency continues, and keep in mind we've got our eye on the Rider Twitter feed, just like you. As the news comes in, we'll get it out to you. We're going to take a break. We're going to come back, and we'll get to our first guest, Cody Janzen, who runs the X Account World Hockey Report. We're going to talk Four Nations Cup. Tonight, Canada takes on Sweden in Montreal. I know there's a lot of people that have probably already cleared the deck and they're going to put their phone on Do Not Disturb because when that puck drops at 7 o'clock for 3 hours, pretty much I think the whole country is going to be locked in. We'll chat with him next. You're watching the all-new SportsCage on our stream on X and on YouTube at sportscage.com, and we're on the radio at 620 CKRM. It's Regina Pats game day. Bennett Dunlop Ford Pats hockey starts tonight 7:30 with the pregame show, and Dante DeCaria from Edmonton. Face-off tonight between the Oil Kings and the Pats goes at 8 o'clock. It's Maz in for Barney today on the all-new SportsCage. Time to go out on the Western Pizza guest hotline. He's been on the show before. He's versatile. He does a couple of things. He's the voice of the Saskatchewan Rush of the National Lacrosse League, and he also runs the very popular X Account World Hockey Report. Welcoming back to the all-new SportsCage, Cody Janzen. Because you can never get enough of saying T-minus. We're T-minus 3 hours and 32 minutes till face-off. Are you getting a little nervous tonight for this Canada-Sweden game?
Nervous? No, not at all. I'm excited. Again, hey, I can't take all the credit for World Hockey Report. I did start it, and I got a few buddies who are hopping on there, so I can't take all the credit. But I'm looking forward to it. I don't know. It's still a little bit weird. I know I talked about it with Barney a few weeks ago on the show, and yes, I'm excited. But there's also a bit of is it really this best on best? I wish there was a few players. I wish it wasn't mid-season. Again, I'll criticize anything, but I am also going to be Hawkeye in this game. I'm looking forward to it. And I think Canada comes out guns a-blazing.
Well, from the lead in and the build up to this, if there's ever going to be an over-analyzed, everybody with a Twitter account is going to be voicing an opinion about 6 to 7 hours from now. I feel like this is it. I'm trying to remember the last time anybody has ever been this pent up for hockey. It wasn't this bad no, because the Olympics the last time around, we really didn't have a real Team Canada. So Canada, Sweden tonight in Montreal. Jordan Binnington gets the start. And I heard an interview today with Doug Armstrong, who is the lead management piece of Team Canada. Are you of the opinion if Canada, for some reason, doesn't win tonight, you automatically, if you're John Cooper, would have to go to Aiden Hill the next game? Like, you can't give somebody 2 games to try and figure their game out.
Yeah, I think that's probably the fair thing to do. And I know it's not all fair in life, but at the end of the day, I don't mind Binnington getting the start. I've said for a long time that I think if I had to choose a goalie to win me a Game 7 in the Stanley Cup final right now, Jordan Binnington's pretty high up on that list. I just think he's got between the ears what not a lot of guys do. I think he's got that different switch. So I'm really excited to see him back on the international scale and really, playing the best on best. I also think Canada should be able to get away with almost anyone in net. I know that there's been a lot of scrutiny and criticism about their goaltenders, but listen, if they're going to hold the puck for 3/4 of the game, I think they can outscore a lot of their problems. So I really haven't looked into the goaltending as much as others, but it does seem to be the topic of conversation, and I think you go with Binnington, and there's no reason why Canada shouldn't win tonight, right? Like, this should be a game where it wouldn't surprise me if Sweden finishes 4th in this tournament. I don't know. I just don't think it's that crazy of a conversation.
We're chatting with Cody Janzen from the World Hockey Report and the Saskatchewan Rush on the Western Pizza Guest Hotline. Four Nation Cup kicks off tonight. Canada taking on Sweden. And another part of this interview that I heard with Doug Armstrong, where people were questioning Binnington, he said, listen, the defense that the St. Louis Blues have had for the past couple of years, admittedly, hasn't been great. Now, tonight, the defense that he's going to have in front of him is going to be of a whole different category. So you may see a very different Jordan Binnington, who's obviously not going to be facing as much rubber. And that's the Jordan Binnington he thinks you're going to see, the kind of the guy that went in and won them a Stanley Cup. I kind of feel that same way as well. Binnington's great, but he can't be left hung out to dry. But you could say that about any goalie, right?
Yeah, I don't think, if USA is going to leave Connor Hellebuyck out to dry, they're going to get run up on too, right? And I think you've also got 20 of the most responsible hockey players in the world wearing Canadian sweaters. So there's no reason in my mind why we should be seeing Sweden get odd man rushes, breakaways, grade A chances consistently. Like, they should be limiting the shots to 25 and under, and probably the high danger chances to 10 or less. Like, I think those are reasonable expectation numbers tonight. Not against USA on Saturday, but for tonight against Sweden, I really think Canada is going to play smart hockey. They're going to hold on to the puck, and they're going to value it.
Now, a lot of people say, listen, Canada has obviously the 3 most individually talented players in hockey, but Team USA has a better team. Not that we want to lose, but would losing to the U.S. be okay as long as we beat Sweden and Finland? Is that acceptable? Like, if we have to rationalize something, because I know we automatically think we're the best and we're going to win everything, but sometimes that doesn't always work in our favor. Is the U.S. the only game that we could potentially come up short for in your mind and still be okay?
No, Canada's not all right with losing. Canada's going to throw a fit within a goal of any of those teams. I think that this is an opportunity for not Hockey Canada, but, Canadians in the hockey world to prove that they're still far and away the best team on the international stage, best on best. They should be beating the brakes off of everyone, and anything less is just an absolute disappointment. Look, imagine if 2006 happened nowadays. Like, imagine what Twitter would be like if Canada lost in the quarters to Russia, like at the Olympics there in 06. It would have just been an absolute burning pit. And so I don't think that there's any acceptable loss, and as there shouldn't be, right? It's Canada's a hockey country, and so, be the best.
Well, and that's where I'm talking about, like, people being so overhyped that winning may not be enough. Like, if we win by 1 goal, well, for a lot of people, that's not going to be it. Well, you should win by 3. Well, wait a minute. These guys are NHLers too, and let alone a loss, which will put a lot of people on tilt, especially when you're opening the tournament. The other day, Barney and I were talking, and as far as maybe some of the unsung heroes, and I'm automatically going to be drawn to anybody with Saskatchewan ties. And I think somebody that could be an unsung hero, and we've seen it play out in the NHL, he's, to me, undervalued and always seems to come through at the right time. And I don't know if you have your eyes on Braden Point, but if there's anybody that could kind of be Crosby, McKinnon, McDavid, you kind of expect it. But as far as a Braden Point goes, if he is the star for Canada that no one was expecting, I'm 100% okay with that.
See, I don't think he's going to be a star. I heard this conversation about unsung heroes, and Point's where my mind goes as well. I think Point has the opportunity to be one of the more effective players, right, in playing a bit of a shutdown role while still chipping in offensively. I also think that just not enough people are talking about Reinhart. I think that this is a guy who could potentially lead the tournament in goals just by who he's playing with and the opportunities he's going to get. So if there's a difference maker, yeah, you probably think it's going to be McDavid, McKinnon, Crosby. But I think there's a couple of sneaky guys there in Reinhart and Point that you mentioned.
Well, the one thing about Reinhart, and we were laughing, I mean, if the lines held true, if you dropped, let's see, you had Reinhart and McDavid on that top line, and let's say if you move Bennett up, would that be an uncomfortable conversation, the three of them on the bench as they're sitting there? I don't know if you talk about the Stanley Cup final last year, but to me, that'd be a pretty good line. The one thing that we were kind of wondering about, if Mitch Marner goes into the corner for a puck with Brady Tkachuk, who do you think comes out with it? Because I've got my money on Brady all day long in that game Saturday night.
Yeah, that's what the USA has, right? They've got the grit, they've got the heart. If they want to muck it up and, play physical, that's their only chance of winning. They're not going to outskill Canada. They're not going to beat them in a 7-6 shootout. Their chance is intimidating them and hoping that Canada wants to play pond hockey. And if Canada wants to play pond hockey or meaningless international hockey, they've got a chance. But if Canada's going to be playing for pride, as you'd expect with the maple leaf on their chest, I just don't see any way that it goes in the Americans' favor.
Cody Janzen is with us on the Western Pizza guest hotline. We're chatting all things hockey, including the Four Nations Cup, which kicks off tonight, Canada, Sweden. Now, I'm not sure where you come out on this. Like a lot of us, we want, but we don't know what's going to happen. Do you think it is Canada and the U.S. in the final?
Well, I hope so, because I'm not going to be able to watch Saturday night. And so I'll have to watch that one after the Rush game. But again, I think, Canada, USA, it's what the hockey world wants. I don't really care about Canada, Sweden, or Canada, Finland. That doesn't get me that excited, although I will be watching tonight. Don't get me wrong.
Could you imagine if it ended up being Sweden and Finland in the final for some awful reason that the hockey gods were just against both countries? Yeah, here we are just automatically assuming it's all just going to work out. And next thing you know, Sweden and Finland are playing for the Four Nations Cup final. I think there would probably be a lot of resale tickets on StubHub that you could get real cheap for that game if that ended up being the scenario. With the NHL being on break, and you kind of mentioned best on best, and when you talk about when you see like a guy like a Leon Draisaitl, who's second in scoring in the NHL, is probably on a lawn chair in Cabo somewhere getting a tan, maybe drinking a Michelob Ultra, maybe having let's see, what's a fancier tequila brand? I'm not going to say Jose Cuervo because that would insult him and the amount of money he has, and that's not fancy at all. Are you okay with the Oilers and the start that they had and just kind of they're quietly going along, doing their business, they're in first place, and just hopefully that they just keep rolling along into the second half of the season? Well, more than the second half of the season and into the playoffs. Have you liked what now everybody talks about their lack of depth on defense, but have you liked what they've been able to do so far this season?
Have I liked it? No. Has it been awful? Also no. I still think that this is a team who realizes that your best advantage into getting into the playoffs is just to be healthy in the dance. Right? Like they realized how important that is for teams. And so if you kind of have to play some extra games like Vegas and Florida, maybe get Evander Kane back for game one, maybe rest a few guys here or there. I'm not saying the players are checked out, but I think that there's clearly games where guys aren't empty in the tank as much as others. I think that you've got to play it smart. And for the Oilers, once they get into the playoffs, we've seen it before and we'll see it again. They've got another switch. I think even Stuart Skinner has another switch. I don't see time to really hammer the panic button because I think once this team gets into the postseason, good luck beating them 4-7 until, the Western Conference final. I don't see anyone, taking them to 7 until it comes down to the Final Four.
I mean, every team you're going to look at, especially in the Western Conference, has got flaws. And I mean, a lot of people, and it's because they run under the microscope, and they're expected to be in the Stanley Cup final again this year, and that's why with the Oilers, is there, in your opinion, in the Western Conference, who's a team that necessarily doesn't have the longest list of flaws heading into the stretch and getting into the playoffs to be like, you know what, if they can kind of keep it together, they've kind of got it all right. Like I know people talk about Colorado needs a second line center. Is Vegas have enough there? Who is that in your mind that if it started tomorrow, they're kind of okay?
Yeah, it's Colorado, right? I think that's definitely a team that could scare you a bit. I know they got a bit of wiggle room. They probably want to continue to add here, before the deadline. I think they're a scarier team to play against. Although Vegas probably should be in that conversation, I'll throw Winnipeg in there because they've kind of been like the Western Conference Leafs. They've just been disappointing come playoff time, for how many years now that like maybe they eventually figure it out. But I think Colorado is definitely the toughest opponent the Oilers probably don't want to face. And then Vegas has to be close seconds.
Well, it's funny. People were wondering about, there's no Mark Stone LTIR magic this year, although there is always that chance with this Four Nations stuff if somebody gets hurt. Over in the East, now, the Washington Capitals have, I think, surprised a lot of people. Nobody expected them to be first place, but, there they are. Are you buying their stock that it's legit, that this is a good hockey team as they head into those final 30 games after this break is over?
I won't say that they're not a good hockey team, but there's 0% chance I'm buying their stock on a playoff run. I think that having a good regular season and a good playoffs are two completely different things. And while maybe they'll win a round, maybe two, I don't look at that roster and say, wow, they've got potential to go on a deep run. They don't have the intangibles that a team like Florida does.
And it's funny, you mentioned the Florida Panthers, and they're just quietly going along and doing their things. With a potential chance to go back, and it's incredibly hard to repeat as Stanley Cup champions. If the Vancouver Canucks, now the wild card, the Canucks are in the wild card spots right now with Colorado. If the Vancouver Canucks miss the playoffs, is it karma for the situation that seemed to drag on that they didn't deal with? Is this a major disappointment? Like, where are they responsible for their own fate if it all falls apart here in the final stretch?
Well, yeah, I'm a JT Miller guy, though, so that's a fully biased answer on my point of view. But I also think that team overexceeded more than anyone else in the NHL last season, and because of a hot goaltender, they had a close series with the Edmonton Oilers, right? Like, they are not a close team to the Edmonton Oilers. And so just because they got hot for a few weeks I think everyone expected them to keep it rolling, and clearly there was bigger issues in the dressing room. And I think they got rid of the wrong guy, especially if their goal is to win a Stanley Cup and win a few playoff rounds here in the near future.
With you, I like that JT Miller, and I like how he plays. And obviously, there was, if you're one of these teams that's kicking the tires on Pettersson, what do you think you're getting? Because he was also part of this problem too. And there's guys in that locker room that will be part of the JT Miller camp and part of the Pettersson camp. There's a lot more to unfold there. It's a nice story right now. Calgary Flames. Do you want to see them hang around just enough to make it in that wild card spot, or is the good news story, the feel good story, if it fizzles out, you guys had a good run, but you don't belong in the playoffs because it's going to be 4-0 and you're going to waste jet fuel on that first trip?
Well, again, if it means we get an Oilers versus Flames first round, then count me fully in. Right? But if it is going to be a waste of 8 days, as some coaches would say, then yeah, I'm kind of fine if they fizzle out. But I think hockey's a better place when Calgary's a strong team. I don't think anyone would argue that, because I think that the Sea of Red's pretty electric, right? Like, I love watching Dustin Wolf play. That kid kicks. He battles all the time. They've got some really interesting pieces. They've obviously another team that's overachieved, but to see them do anything in the playoffs, I think it's very early, and good luck with whoever they're going to face in the first round.
Well, this is the challenging situation that I think Craig Conroy finds himself in, and a lot of Flames fans, because you are this close and you have $18 million in cap space. Why wouldn't you make a move? Why wouldn't you show the organization and the Sea of Red and everybody else, and especially these players that have punched above their weight, without a doubt, like, no, we're in. There is no rebuild. It's a remodel, as Eric Francis says, a slight remodel, and you go for it. Oh, it'd be interesting to see what comes across his phone.
Yeah, you see some teams do that here and there. And again, to bring it back to the lacrosse world, we've seen the Saskatchewan Rush do that. And a few years ago, it didn't work. And then last year, it does work. Bringing in, Zach Mans to Saskatchewan, where, like, you do want to reward those guys, but you also have to be careful about, going out of your way and setting yourself up or hurting yourself long term. But if you're able to bring in those players who can come in on reasonable contracts and do a good job, then obviously you're going to go for the swing. But if you are going to set your team back, you better make sure it's going to be useful in the imminent future.
All right, we'll wrap on this. Tonight, Canada versus Sweden. It's game 1 of the Four Nations face-off in Montreal. Who wins tonight, and what's the score, Cody?
Give me Canada 6-2.
6-2. Nice. And who at the as we tally the score sheet when the game's all said and done, who's got what? Who's our leading scorer tonight?
I think McDavid probably has a goal and 3 assists. Goal and 2 assists. Okay. Sam Reinhart probably a couple of goals. That's my guess.
All right. It's Cody Janzen on the Western Pizza Guest Hotline. Have a great call this weekend. It's so funny. When we say PVR the game, the PVRs really don't exist. You're just sort of taping it on your digital system. So if you're PVRing the game, have a great call this weekend with the Saskatchewan Rush, and let's do this again. It's Cody Janzen on the all-new SportsCage on the Western Pizza Guest Hotline. We'll take a break and come back. We're 3 days out from the Super Bowl, and now we're kind of into leftover territory, but we got a chance to hear from Travis Kelce, who admittedly didn't have a great game. Him and his brother, they have the New Heights podcast. It's one of the most popular podcasts in the world. And if you didn't get a chance yet, we'll play you his thoughts on how he thought Sunday went down. We'll do that next on the all-new SportsCage, streaming at sportscage.com and on the radio, 620 CKRM. Still to come on the show, Double Talk with Darian Durant. We'll do that just after 5. It's brought to you by CampbellSafety.com. We'll get Darian's thoughts on the Super Bowl and the Riders and CFL free agency. And coming up after the top of the hour from Montreal at the Four Nations Cup, Eric Francis and Inside the NHL for Southie Mainline Chrysler, the new king of trucks. The show is brought to you by the Canadian Brewhouse. Don't forget, it's Wing Wednesdays. They're unbeatable at the Canadian Brewhouse, only 69 cents each, and a mountain of flavors to savor and a flavor of the month. Do that wing thing every Wednesday at the Canadian Brewhouse. And I would assume with the big hockey game tonight, seating is going to be at a premium. People are going to be pitting in. Man, oh man. Here's the thing. With the extreme cold warning that we have right now, if you're getting dropped off and picked up in a nice warm, that was the best part about when we were having kids. Like, when my wife was pregnant, if you're going somewhere, you had a designated driver. It was great. I mean, there's Ubers now and all that. A high of minus 24 today if we get to it. Oh, did you guys like that? Did you guys like that? Did you?
Yes, all
with the
of
wind
us in
chill,
our
it feels
having
like minus
kids
35. Oh, that's right. Well, you guys don't.
School. Yeah,
I know, but you do. But it is like a built-in thing. Now there's a lot of benefits to being a parent, but that was just one of them along the way. Okay,
I think you're just trying to scam us into having kids too. All right, in this economy, that's just financially irresponsible, Maz. Come on.
I'll leave that up to you guys. But there's nothing worse, right? You get out, you leave the car, you're somewhere 3.5 hours, and you go out, and the steering, it's freezing cold, and it's like square blocks you're driving on, and it takes forever to warm up. Unless you're that one smart person in the diesel, you just let her idle the whole time, and she stays nice and warm.
Yeah, even this morning, I really wanted to. I specifically pulled my car into my parking spot so I could plug it in and stuff. And then I was like, oh, I got to go inside and grab the cord and whatnot. And I just forget to plug it in. And then I go to start it in the morning. You're like, oof, that was a mistake. You go, put, vroom. And you're like, okay, maybe we'll let it
was the
warm up a little bit.
For that.
No, the best part in cold weather like this is people that have their vehicle plugged in and they forget to unplug it and they drive away and they're driving with the extension cord, like dragging underneath the front of the car. Hey, we've all been there. We've all done that.
I've done that once to my dad, and he was not impressed because it was an expensive cord too. It was like an 100-foot one, and I accidentally lost it. He was not happy and never done it since, but it wasn't my cord to experiment with, eh?
Yeah.
If you drove away with 100-foot extension cord, you're very lucky it didn't get wrapped around the axle somehow and really cause some problem. Like, it's one thing when it's a 10-foot cord or a 12-foot cord, but 100-foot extension cord? Wow.
It wasn't my greatest moment, Maz. That's for sure.
Yeah, I've only driven away with like a 5-foot or a 6-footer, so you got me beat there.
Yeah. I'm number one. I'm number one.
Hey, to anybody that's out there, especially anybody that's driving a tow truck or doing boosts and stuff like right now, you are doing yeoman's work. And whatever you're charging, you could charge triple. And you know what? It's man, oh man. All right, so it's Wednesday after the Super Bowl. And for a lot of people, it's almost time to move on. It's like saying Happy New Year 3 weeks into January. But yesterday, the new episode of New Heights, the podcast with Travis and Jason Kelce dropped. And this is the most honest you're ever going to get, the Kelce brothers. And Travis was honest about his performance in the Super Bowl. If we got this ready to go, hit it.
Just wasn't our day. Couldn't find a lick of momentum. I'm kicking myself for some of the tiny, tiny decisions I made on the field. I wasn't the best leader that I could be in motivating my guys and keeping my guys, calm, cool, collected. And I put a lot of that on myself as, the guy that's been in the building for 12 years and seen a lot of football and actually seeing a situation just like this in the Super Bowl. It's a tough pill to swallow. It's a hard reality, man. I love my teammates. I love my coaches, Chiefs Kingdom. I'm sorry for how it ended. I have a beautiful life, man. I have loved ones. I have the most amazing family in the world that supports me in everything that I do. And they were all there, cheering me on and hoping for the best on Sunday, man. I wish things would have went different. I wish I would have made better decisions early on and helped my guy Pat out and helped my team, find that momentum or that confidence. But, I just have to tip my hat to the Eagles.
I know this sucks to talk about. I've been here. There wasn't all negative for the Chiefs. You broke the most catches in Super Bowl history. I know that you don't probably care that much about it right now because of the way the game went. You have so many records at this point that this is like kind of like just another one. But at the end of the day, it's just another thing that cements you as one of the best players ever to play in the NFL. Past Jerry Rice, Gronkowski, Andre Reed.
That's the last thing that I care about right now.
I know, but you will, and it's done.
One thing, here's the thing why, besides the Taylor Swift stuff, which, whatever, the reason why I kind of like him is what you heard right there. He took accountability. He knows he played like garbage. And he's actually copping to it, where you don't get that a lot from athletes anymore.
Well, definitely one of the biggest things about improving your game is willing to admit you make mistakes. No one's perfect, right? And that's the only way you can kind of like grow. And you could tell that's a guy at the top of his game because you have that mindset. You're willing to learn from your mistakes and move on. Mm-hmm. And it's one of those things. That's why experience is the most important thing you can have.
Is that our
Well,
Curtis
a lot of people were wondering if he...
the wise quip from Curtis.
Oh, you guys, the double C's are now making their own quotable quotes every day. A lot of people thought if they were to win the Super Bowl, would he retire and go out on top? But now is the fire lit for next year because he doesn't. Do we have this clip ready to go? So obviously the Super Bowl is broadcast around the world in many different languages. We were able to track down, this is the British play-by-play of the Cooper DeJean, Dancehall DeJean, pick six. I thought this is pretty cool. This is like NFL.
To try and make some magic. A night where he's trying to establish his legacy. Steps his foot. Has some RJ right. Rushes out to the right-hand side. Has a man down. Throws the interception at the 39-yard line. Returning absolute numbers 25, 20. Cooper DeJean down to the 10. Down to the 5. Touchdown Eagles! Cooper DeJean goes all the way across the formation. Returns the ball.
I love it. I love that. The passion. Could you imagine if those guys did a Rider game, if they did like the Labor Day Classic?
That'd be fun.
There at Mosaic for the international, the CFL international broadcast?
Nah, I only listen to Dave Thomas and Luke and I don't know, maybe Darian on a Labor Day Classic. Who knows, but
maybe. There's a guy that wrote a song all about the Eagles beating the Chiefs. We will get that to you later in the show. Don't shake your head. You two had no idea even what song he was mocking. All right. So, but for a lot of people listening to this that are above the age of 19, like you guys, they'll know what song that was. We'll do that a little later. We'll take a break. When we come back, we're going to check in with our guy, Eric Francis. We'll go inside the NHL. He is at the Four Nations Cup in Montreal. We'll do that in just a couple of minutes. It's the all-new Sports Cage on the home of the Saskatchewan Roughriders, 620 CKRM. Hour 2 of the all-new Sports Cage. It is brought to you by Regina Motor Products. If you've got a dent or a ding, visit the RMP SGI-accredited full-service collision center and body shop, Regina Motor Products. Book today. It's Maz in for Barney. He will be back tomorrow. The big story, free agency continues in the CFL. Today, the Riders sign center Sean McEwen. 3-time All-Star from the Calgary Stampeders. The 31-year-old will be joining the Green and White. And they also added another running back to that already crowded backfield. Kalen LeBourne is joining the Green and White from the Ottawa Red Blacks. He was the guy that took over for Arkwell Armstead last year in Ottawa and played pretty well. Had a couple of NFL looks, and he'll be in training camp. Now, a couple of great signings by J.O., and we're going to hear from Jeremy later on in the show. Dave Thomas had a chance to catch up with him today as they had a presser at Mosaic Stadium. So we'll do that in probably about a half hour's time. Riders losing Miles Brown. Brown signing a 1-year deal with the Calgary Stampeders. And we'll have, as the signings come in, we'll keep you up to date. The extreme cold warning is still in effect for Regina and southern Saskatchewan. A high of minus 24 today, but it's that wind chill you got to watch out for, feeling like minus 35 tonight. Down to minus 33, and with the wind chill, minus 47. Tomorrow's high, minus 22, but with the wind chill making it feel like minus 36. Right now, minus 27 feels like minus 36. All right, it's time to go inside the NHL for Saudi Mainline Chrysler. the king of trucks. Let's catch up with our guy, Eric Francis.
Time now for Inside the NHL with Eric Francis on the all-new Sports Cage. Inside the NHL is brought to you by Southie Mainline, the Mainline Automotive Group's newest king of trucks. Southie Mainline, just 30 minutes north of Regina. Worth the drive every time. Guaranteed.
All right. First off, let's see here. We do. I wasn't sure if we were going to get you just on the phone, but we've got you on video. Now, Eric, you're in Montreal, correct?
I am indeed. Bienvenue.
Okay. All right. Well, no need to go that far. Remember what province you're in, my friend. Okay. So it is Wednesday, February 12th. First of all, question. How many years have you been married?
I've been married. My 20th is coming up here this year, so that's why I nailed it. Yeah, that's why I knew the year.
Okay. Now, in 2 days, it's going to be Valentine's Day, and I'm assuming that you're still going to be in Montreal, but your wife is not on the trip, correct?
No, and I don't know where you're going with this, but I'm going to tell you that I'm meeting up with her on Valentine's Day in Mexico. So I'm good.
Oh, okay. Well, no, I was just wondering to be like, how would you like, okay, it's Valentine's Day, but no, there's this hockey thing. Oh, so you're just in Montreal for a bit and then you're blasting off to Mexico. All right. No, I totally get it. Because like I said, I'm game planning.
I think it was part of the thing, but you know, when you were married 20 years and dated 6 or 7 years before that, Valentine's Day is not like a big thing. I've wrecked it so many times in the past and there are zero expectations for me to get this thing right. So no worries there.
Yeah. I know, but they always hope that you will redeem yourself somehow, some way. And like I said, as someone guilty of wrecking a lot of things. It's funny because of the past couple of days, just with the kids in school and getting the Valentines ready, because now the rule is, Eric, and you know as kids, it's either all or none. Like you can't just give specific Valentines to kids because it's an inclusive world. So everybody gets them or nobody gets them. And then I had to go and I had to get because my father-in-law does a real bad job. I had to go get my mother-in-law some flowers today so I could earn points with my wife to do that. So there's just a lot of activity. So I wanted to know how you were handling Valentine's.
No, I booked a family vacation in Mexico, and I feel like that's a win. Like that's pretty romantic, isn't it? My wife won't see it that way. But,
no. Here's the thing, and I will ask you this. If you're not taking your golf clubs and you're just committing to spending time with your family, then yes, it's a good gesture. But are you taking your golf clubs on your Mexican vacation?
I'm not taking my clubs. No, I mean, I'm disappointed in myself. Never mind disappointing my wife. I'm disappointed in myself. Look, I didn't want to lug them all the way to Montreal. You look like a fool going through the Montreal airport with a bag of golf clubs and then jumping back in. Anyway, no, it's a family vacation. I'm looking forward to spending time with my daughter who's at university. And my son, of course, who's here in Montreal with me. There's a boys' trip to Montreal to see a couple games, and then we do the family thing. It's all good.
Okay. Tonight, Canada, Sweden. So there's a little bit of a time difference. Bell Center. Are you now? Keep in mind, when you've gone to games, you've done the press thing. Are you guys just going as fans, sitting in the seats, just like everybody else, just cheering on Team Canada? You're just fans tonight.
We are debating what jerseys to wear / buy. My son just rode up in the elevator. We're at one of the media hotels, so my son just rode up in the elevator with Cale McCarr's dad, and now he wants a McCarr jersey. And then I ran into the Kachucks earlier today, and they actually had a funny story there. I said, is there any chance that the boys will be on the same? Everyone wanted the Kachucks to be on the same line. That's not happening, at least at the start of the tournament. And they're not even on the same power play. But the joke is that, Matthew is on the first power play unit, and when he comes off, on comes Brady on the same wing. And the joke that Matthew keeps saying, and we'll find out if it's a joke or not, is I'm going to stay on the whole power play and ruin it for you, Brady, so you can't get on and play any hockey at all. So that's the brotherly love that we're dealing with. But yeah, we're going to go as fans. We're drinking beer and going as fans, wearing jerseys.
How old's your son again? Not old enough to
14.
drink beer, I'm assuming. Okay, well, it is Quebec, and I don't know. They have different
It's
rules.
Quebec, yeah, exactly.
And listen, they don't want the oil, and they don't want to cut a deal on the dairy. Apparently, I was watching some press conference earlier today. So whatever, they have underage drinking. It's all good. What is there genuine excitement there that's kind of taken over the city?
Like, I would say no. Look, it's like minus 100 here right now. It's cold. People, we were just walking St. Catherine Street and around there. There's no vibe in terms of the tournament. This is a big city. These things get lost in big cities. But I can tell you that, like, we're in one of the media hotels. The NHLPA is based here. All the families are staying here. So in this hotel, yes, everybody is here for one reason. There is a buzz. I think in the hockey world, there's a buzz. And you correct me if you think I'm wrong, but I think that people are really excited to see this. It's been a lot of years since we've seen best on best. Everybody's talking about the line combinations. And if you're not into it right now and you're saying this is a gimmick or this is silly, well, first of all, you're wrong. And second of all, I bet you will get into it. I really bet you will, because you got to tune in and at least watch it. Or you're not a hockey fan, that's all.
Well, to me, I thought just watching how people online, and they haven't even played a second yet of hockey, are so invested in this. And for a lot of people who make it seem like they're playing, they're going to be getting skip the dishes and trying to put a dent in a 15-pack of Michelob Ultra. That's as far as their commitment. But it seems like they're on the second power play, the way they're talking it up on social media. This is going to be the most overanalyzed 10 days of hockey I think that the world has ever seen before, especially from a Canadian perspective. Now, if Canada wins, what if they only win by one? It's not going to be enough for some people. If it's two, it's not going to be enough, let alone lose. But here's the thing because we're delusional Canadian hockey fans, it's never going to be enough. And heaven forbid if we were to lose a game to the Americans, but if we were to lose to Sweden or Finland, like that would be like, what are you expecting tonight? Like, pretty good team on the other side. You can't just assume that Canada, it's just a cakewalk. There's some pretty good players over there too.
I'm expecting a close game. And I'll tell you what, the whole mood in there is going to get a little more uptight if Sweden scores first or something like that. Everybody, I don't know. I think given the goaltending situation in Canada and the fact that the rest of the world really has slowly caught up over the years, and now we've been 9 years since we've had an international tournament. I don't think anybody would shock that if any three of the four teams won this tournament. I really believe that. And I do think that the hockey world just believes that the favorite are the Americans. And I believe they're the favorites. I believe they're going to win this thing. I just can't see how we can, be better than their goaltending. And that's so important. So I don't agree with you that it's not enough. If this Canadian team goes 2-1, but still manages to get into the final and wins by a goal, I don't think anyone's going to say, wow, we weren't good enough. I think there'll be a realization there that everybody's caught up. This is a global game, and anybody can win any of these tournaments. I don't think Finland can win this tournament, but I think anybody can win this tournament other than that.
Yeah, I mean, if anybody's picking somebody to finish fourth, a lot of people are just penciling in Finland at this point. And so tonight against Sweden, I heard an interview with Doug Armstrong earlier today, and a couple of things, and you've probably dealt with him on a professional level. He just seems like a really good guy, and he's our team lead for management. And he said that Jordan Binnington, that will be playing for Canada, will probably be a different Jordan Binnington because the past couple of years, the St. Louis Blues haven't been very good defensively. And Jordan Binnington has paid the price because he just hasn't had a lot of support that way. And he thinks that the Jordan Binnington you're going to see is that guy that helped them win a Stanley Cup. Do you think that a Jordan Binnington with some good defense in front of him shows he's not just a hothead kook that likes to lose it every once in a while?
Yeah. We'll find out. I'm not convinced I know the options. There weren't a lot of great options. I know most Canadians are stuck on the fact that Logan Thompson's not here. But the reality is that Binnington's the guy for now. I would be pretty surprised if Binnington played every game for Canada. If they win tonight, then he'll start. If they win again, then he'll get the next. But I'm not convinced they're going to win all their games, which tells me that, I think Binnington will be exchanged out for Aiden Hill. We're about to find out. I've heard that argument. I've talked to Doug Armstrong about it. I've talked to people in St. Louis about it. People in St. Louis saw that Binnington carried that franchise not on his shoulders in the playoffs, but from basically last place in the season when he came and joined them out of the AHL that year. So it was pretty heroic what he did. No one will ever forget it. And they think that he's still capable of doing superhuman things. So we're about to find out. I'm not convinced, but I know he'd love to shove it in everybody's face and say, I keep picturing him doing what Nazem Kadri did when they won the Stanley Cup. Everybody can kiss my ass. I just feel like that would be coming from a Jordan Binnington if Canada can win this.
I think Doug Armstrong's exact quote is, Jordan Binnington hasn't had the same, let's just say it wasn't the 77 Montreal Canadiens playing defense in front of him the past couple of years in St. Louis. I think he was putting it on that. And I think if you're John Cooper, like I said, if you lose, I think you have to swap out goalies. I don't know if you can give a guy 2 games because the games are just too precious. Like you said, there is no playoff round. It's a matter of, and the way that it's funny, after we talked the other day, I saw it pop up online. So if you win in regulation clean, it's 3 points. If you win in overtime, it's 2, and then on like that. So it's best to just win these games clean and get as far out ahead as everybody else, because there's no play-in round, there's no this, it's just all got to be there.
You lose one game, you could be out. I mean, you could still scrap your way in even if you lose one game, but boy, that puts you behind the 8 ball. And I don't know if I like that. I mean, I kind of feel like because there's so much at stake and we're so proud as Canadians, you'd like to see a little bit of a buffer so that if they falter in any way that they could still get back in. But I like the 3-2-1. I've always thought the NHL should go to that, but I also understand why they don't. It keeps the parity, it keeps teams close, and I'm okay with that too. So, but I like the soccer way to do it. 3-2-1 is it makes it even more important to win every game.
Well, I thought maybe this is foreshadowing, and this is something Gary wants to do before his swan song, retirement tour, whatever that is, to go to a 3-2-1, much like soccer. So then when you do the win, a clean win is that much more important than these overtimes and the shootout and the video game hockey. Here's the thing with Team Canada, and it's not that I want them to lose tonight against Sweden, but we've all seen the makeup of these teams. A lot of these players, they all seem to flourish when they have to play with adversity. When something happens, then you really see the best. You can't fake that, though. Like, you can't fake adversity. Sometimes losing brings out the best because it teaches you everything that you need to, because these are guys, yes, they're the best together, but they're not a team. They're just a bunch of all-stars put together. So is there any way to mimic that, to bring these guys together if you're John Cooper outside of pep talks?
I don't know. I mean, I feel like that's where the Americans have the biggest advantage, because I feel like this generation of American players want to prove to the world that, hey, we have officially taken over as the best nation in hockey in the world. I feel like guys like Matthew Tkachuk really feel that. They're itching to get out here and prove it. Brady's the same way. I feel like Matthews is kind of like, I think it's spread in that room. Like, guys, let's catch everybody off guard. We're going to go balls to the wall and prove to the world that we're the best. Canada doesn't look, every time they play, they feel like they have something to prove, no question about it. And there's a lot more pressure in Canada than there is in the States to win. But I just feel like the bee in the bonnet, or however you want to put it, is, favors the Americans, because they're the ones who are itching. We haven't had international hockey for all these years. And whenever we do in the past, it's been Canada, Canada, Canada. Americans now, I feel like they think it's their time. And that's why I think they're the team. You talk about just coming out, out of the gate like you've been shot out of a cannon. I feel like the Americans will do that. Maybe Canada needs a little help in that regard. Maybe I'm wrong.
Hey, Curtis, can you put up the picture yesterday, the team photos? There's a couple of things. And Eric, I'm not sure if you've seen this. There's a couple of things. Kyle Connor's neck, and then Brock Nelson looking like he's 55. Okay, so here's the team photo. So if you're watching the stream, so Connor Hellebuck has no neck, and then Kyle Connor looks like he has a double neck. This isn't Photoshop either. This is real. I'm like, that just looks odd.
That's
looking
funny.
odd.
I hadn't looked at that one, but the Brock Nelson one is. I've heard people talk about that. Like, there it is. A different looking dude.
Okay, so Brock Nelson, if you haven't seen this, so he plays with the Islanders. He looks like a 53-year-old science teacher in high school that maybe just came off a nervous breakdown, and he's trying to hold it all together. He doesn't look like he's early 30s. That's for sure.
No, that's just a different looking photo. It's funny. It's funny that you noticed that. Me and several of my friends had pointed it out too. It's just, I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that the average hockey fan couldn't tell you what Brock Nelson looked like. He's been kind of hidden in New York for years on one of the most boring teams in the NHL. And I think that's probably been his fate. So this is the first time people have seen him, and it's a little bit startling for some people.
Eric Francis is with us. We're inside the NHL, brought to you by Southie Mainline Chrysler. They're unleashing the heat this February, and man, we could use it. Southie Mainline, just 30 minutes north of Regina. You can get into a brand new Ram truck for just $49,995, or a new Jeep Compass for as low as $38,686. You can get 0% financing on a Jeep Grand Cherokee. Call 306-726-2060 or visit southeymainline.ca. Southie Mainline Chrysler is worth the drive every time, guaranteed. Curtis, if you want to put up this photo, it's part of their locker room. It will be in every locker room that they are in, whether the games are in Montreal or the games will be in Boston. The number 13 Johnny Gaudreau jersey, which will be proudly hung. So you want to talk about them playing for something. All right. That's not manufactured and it's not fake and it's not, this is real, because Johnny would have been on this team and he played with these guys because he came up the ranks with these guys that you saw the Gaudreau brothers and their Eagles jerseys, and the Philadelphia Eagles did not win the Super Bowl because of the Gaudreau brothers. But that was kind of a nice added thing to see that, because they loved the Eagles. That was their team. This Team USA thing, I think there's a deeper meaning there, that you got to know guys are going to be playing for this. Not only for themselves, but that's one of their brothers that would have been there right with them had, that unfortunate situation not happened.
I agree with you. I just feel like there's an avalanche of, not momentum, but motivation, and I think with these tournaments, sometimes it's tricky to kind of, as you said, come up with inspiration, come up with a motivator. Obviously, every time these guys go out, they want to be the best player in the world that they can be and be on the best team. But I just feel like there are a couple other things at play here that really squarely put the advantage in the Americans' side, including the fact that I think that they have the best schedule. Like, starting off against the weakest team, I think that gives them a little bit of an advantage too, to kind of iron out a couple kinks, get some confidence going, and then be ready for that game one night later, against Canada. So, but the Gaudreau thing is powerful. Guy was there at practice both days. Again, I talked to the Kachuk family when I saw them in the lobby here today, and they were thrilled. And they pointed out, they were the ones who say the boys were so excited to see Guy here because they love him, and everyone is just rooting for that family. So, these are powerful things, and they're going to have that in the room, and probably the last thing they see when they walk out the dressing room door to go up the ice is Gaudreau number 13 and that logo that you just showed. So it's powerful.
Barney sent me a text. He's betting you, just a second here, he's betting you 24 beer that Canada beats the USA or wins the tournament. I don't know.
Okay. I'll take that. Yeah.
Okay. I'll bet Eric 24 quarters from the home course Canada beats wins. Well, apparently he's messaging that to everybody. It's not just me, but I was like, what's blowing up the phone? All right, with you said you're at the NHL kind of hotel, that sort of the center of the hub, and I got to assume, because all of the good stuff always happens in the bar at some point or another, whether it's the trades, whatever is going down. Although the NHL is in its break, there's a lot of people talking shop. It's going to be a sprint to the finish once this thing is over as they get closer to the playoffs. Do you expect, because you cover the Flames and it's been a nice story, they've punched above their weight. They're kind of they're right there on the verge of a wild card playoff spot. If you're Craig Conroy, do you show faith in your team? You've got cap space. Do you look to add a little bit? I know you said it's never a rebuild, it's a retool, and we're always going to be trying in this. We're never going to tank. Do you show your guys, hey, listen, I'm going to get you what you need. We're in. We got to make the playoffs here.
He's already done that. He's already made his move. And I'm not saying there's no chance Craig Conroy is going to not make a move, but I'd be pretty surprised if he did anything of significance. Like, they might add a young defenseman. If somebody's making a young defenseman with some term available that fits into their plans moving forward, then there's a potential that they'll sign a guy. But they would like to. If in a perfect world, he'd snap his fingers and have a left-handed defenseman who can play in a number 3 or 4 spot for this team in Calgary. But if that player, I guarantee you, it won't be a rental. That is for sure. That would go contrary to the blueprint that he's kind of mapped out for this team. And the move that he just made, considerable capital with a second rounder, but all the other parts in that trade were spare parts. And you got the center that you've been looking for a year. And they also added Joel Farabee. So he is done with his significant moves. He is done showing the team, hey, I owe you. You guys have been incredible, and I got to do my part. He's done his part, and now it's up to this team to sink or swim. And what's interesting about that is, when we come out of this break, I'm on a 6-game road trip with those guys, and it's going to be it's a gauntlet. Washington, 2 Florida teams, Carolina, Dallas, they could almost be out of it by the time that road trip ends, and that leads us right into the trade deadline.
Yeah, and that's what has happened to the Flames before, where they lose those critical games at the wrong time, much like the game going into the break where they were on cruise control against the Seattle Kraken, and next thing you know, Seattle come back and win. They still do get a point, but is that point going to come back to bite them? So I'm looking at the Western Conference. Central, Winnipeg, Dallas, Minnesota. Pacific, Edmonton, Vegas, LA. Your wild cards are Colorado and Vancouver. Outside of the Canucks and their shakiness, do you see any of those teams there falling off the map and not being there when all is said and done? Like, is Colorado just going to get better in that wild card spot? Like, legitimately, who's coming in 8th there?
Yeah, it's really a 2-horse race to me. It's Calgary or Vancouver. And, I thought you were going to ask if any of the teams below Calgary could make a push. And I don't see that happening, like the St. Louis's of the world. I just think there's too much gap, and there's just not good enough hockey teams. What I think is almost a bigger storyline as we move forward is the Calgary Flames are only 5 points away from dropping 7 points, seven spots in the standings to be in the bottom 10 to give them a top 10 draft pick. That is only significant because if they finish in the bottom 10 of the standings, they get to keep their first-round draft pick that was involved in the Sean Monahan trade. So there are a lot of fans who are hoping they drop enough on that opening road trip that I just talked about, and 7 other teams could pass them. It's only a 5-point gap. Like, that's an incredible window. They're 3 points out of tying Vancouver for the final wild card booth. They're 5 points out of dropping far enough to keep their first-round draft pick that they otherwise got to give to Montreal. So it'll be fascinating to see where the Flames go, because I think anybody could see them going either way, and it wouldn't shock anybody if they dropped or if they somehow stayed in this race. I think the odds are definitely in favor of them dropping far enough.
All right, and then over in the Eastern Conference.
But that said, I just want to add, like, when the break is over, they'll probably have Connor Zary back in the lineup. They'll probably have Kevin Ball, who's like on their top pairing defensively. Those are significant additions for the team as well. So, writing them off would be a little bit premature. It's just that I think everybody has a sour taste in their mouth because of that game you just mentioned just before the break. That was a crucial 1 point they gave up to Seattle in heartbreaking fashion.
Yeah. So, and over in the East, Metropolitan, you've got Washington, Carolina, and New Jersey. And then in the Atlantic, you've got Florida, Toronto, and Tampa Bay. I heard something yesterday, And I don't get 9 layers deep on the Toronto Maple Leafs because I just don't care enough. But and this was good investigative work, that the Toronto Maple Leafs, their number 1 and 2 centers, if you look at the last 3 Stanley Cup champions, the number 1 and 2 centers, and sometimes the third, the plus minus there was usually above 20 and sometimes into the low 30s. But right now, between Tavares and Matthews in Toronto, you're only you're like a +9 or a +10, and it's that lack of production out of those two and the defensive liability, which they're saying like this is a huge concern, that you have to have your top 2 centers produce, especially in the playoffs, to go far, and that's a huge weakness in Toronto, and it's something that if they don't shore up, amongst other things, could be another short shelf life come the playoffs. I don't know. Do you kind of see the same thing?
Well, look, I don't worry I don't worry about the Leafs in terms of having enough talent. They've had enough talent offensively for the last 10 years probably to have won a round in the playoffs, but they just don't do it. The question is, can these guys step up when it matters most? Marner, Matthews, Nylander. I definitely think they're capable. And I think Tavares is still one of the more underrated guys. Everybody kind of dogs on him, but he's still an integral part of that offense. So can they produce in the playoffs? That's the $1 billion question in Toronto. The one thing I will say in terms of Toronto is this time I do believe they finally have the goaltending. It's small sample size. Joseph Wall and Stolarz, small sample size this year only. But I do believe they're good enough, and in combination with their defense, that they can be at least good enough defensively to get by that first round, as long as those guys up front produce. But traditionally, we've seen Marner disappear in the playoffs. I do feel like they can do it, but I want to see who they play in the first round first before I make any predictions on whether or not these guys can show up.
Okay, we'll wrap on this because you probably got to get to the game and pay $38 for beer. Wild cards in the East. Here's your teams and your striking distance teams as we sit today in this break. I want to know the 2 teams that you think are going to end up in the wild card in the East. You got Ottawa, Detroit, who are in it right now. You got Columbus and Boston within striking distance. Who do you think the final 2 in the wild card in the East? Because it's like a point or 2 here or there.
Look, I've been hearing for years that Ottawa is just on the cusp, and I've been hearing for years that Detroit's just on the cusp, and they never even come close. They have that final 20 games, they absolutely disappear. And I don't believe Columbus is legit. I mean, even if they do get Marchenko and Monahan back in a timely fashion, they're both got significant injuries. Even if they did get those guys back, I think that the attrition rate's been so huge, and I just don't believe that they're good enough to stay in this race. So that leads me to believe that at least one of those 2 teams I mentioned, Detroit or Ottawa, is getting into the playoffs. Right now it's Detroit, but with Ottawa getting Ullmark back, if he can return to form like in this tournament, if he plays, and then after that, I think Ottawa might be that team that finally does it. So I would think Ottawa's got as good a shot as Detroit to get in one of those final spots. I really do.
And then yesterday I heard that Linus Ullmark, and I kind of like him even more, is a little bit of a head case when it comes to the driving coaches crazy. And I'm like, all right, not enough of that anymore in this NHL. He's a unique dude. All right, Eric, tonight, Canada, Sweden, a prediction, who wins and what's the score?
I don't want to cause a riot, so I'll say Canada wins 3-2, but I'm worried about this one. As a Canadian hockey fan, I'm definitely worried about it. I really am. I'm not going to sit here and make a prediction that Sweden will win because I don't want someone to burn my house down. But I'm worried. This is not a cakewalk. This is definitely not a cakewalk. Any one of these 3 teams could win this thing. So it's a tough first opponent for Canada.
All right. Well, enjoy the game tonight with your son. No one will blame you if you sell your Canada USA tickets to pay for your trip to Mexico and make a little probably bank on the side. But if you do end up going, and then enjoy Mexico, and then we'll catch up with you a little later. All right, my friend.
Yeah, I won't. I won't chat. I won't. I'll be gone next week.
You're off next week. You started. Did you start with bonjour? So I'll finish with au revoir. And we'll wrap this bilingual. It's inside the NHL. It's inside the NHL with Eric Francis. It's brought to you by Southie Mainline Chrysler. It's worth the drive every time, guaranteed. So Eric's on vacation, so no Eric Francis next week. Let's make a mental note of that. He's going to be having some fun in the sun. All right, we'll change that up. All right, time to take a break. Couple of big free agent signings in Riderville. We'll get you caught up with that, and then when we come back, more of the conversation, Dave Thomas and Saskatchewan Roughrider General Manager Jeremy O'Day. And what's gone down, not only since the season ended, but since the tampering window opened in Rider free agency. It's the all-new SportsCage streaming on X and on our YouTube channel at sportscage.com and on the radio at 620 CKRM. No games in the Saskatchewan Junior Hockey League tonight. Last night, one game, Nipawin at LaRange. Will Witter had the OT winner as Nipawin ended up beating the Ice Wolves 4-3. Tomorrow night, this is going to be your worth the drive game for Southie Mainline Chrysler. You've got Weyburn at Melfort. Weyburn first place in the Viterra division with 58 points. In Melfort, taking on the Mustangs, first place, 72 points. That should be a good one. The all-new Sports Cage is brought to you by the Canadian Brewhouse. Don't forget, on Thursdays, it's Pasta and Uncorked Thursdays, where you can get pasta dishes for $11.99, including the Alberta Wagyu Ravioli, the creamy grilled chicken Alfredo, and the triple play mac and cheese. You can also get dollars off tankards of Bud and Bud Light. And if you're a wine drinker, you can get a 9-ounce glass for the price of 6, all at the Canadian Brewhouse. Free agency today, the Saskatchewan Roughriders, a few more pens to paper, and let's welcome into Rider Nation, Sean McEwen, who joins Riderville as a 3-year All-Star from the Calgary Stampeders. A great Canadian center. He's 31 years old. And we mentioned earlier in the show, I don't know what Dave Dickinson's plan as general manager is, but Dave Dickinson, the head coach, when you lose a stalwart offensive lineman like that, somebody who's been a rock for a bunch of years, I hope you got something better to replace Sean McEwen, but I don't know about that. Kalen LeBourne also is joining Riderville. He played last year with the Ottawa Redblacks. So another running back into an already crowded running back stable. On the flip side of that, it looks like Miles Brown is saying goodbye to the green and white. He has signed a 1-year deal with the Calgary Stampeders. Now, earlier today, Jeremy O'Day spoke to the press about free agency and everything that's going on in and around Riderville. And Dave Thomas had a chance to catch up with him. And here's Dave from earlier today at Mosaic Stadium.
Vice President of Football Operations and General Manager of the Saskatchewan Roughriders is Jeremy O'Day joining me now. J.O., the free agent window is open right now. Yes, we're in the midst of the free agent frenzy. Now, so far, you've been busy signing quarterback Tommy Stevens, offensive lineman Philippe Gagnon. Just this morning, you added running back Kalen Laybourne, as well as offensive lineman Sean McEwen. But it hasn't been as busy as you've been in the past. Did you feel that you didn't have to be as active this year heading into free agency with maybe what you had built last year?
You know, after the season when we had the discussions, we had 9 All-Stars last year, so we got all 9 of them back, and so we wanted the continuity to be there, and it's interesting. It certainly didn't feel like it was any less nerve-wracking, I guess. When you go into free agency, you're still after some guys, you're still after some of your own guys, and you're still having discussions, and you kind of, you have a roster that you put together that you want it to turn out exactly how it is, and it never really does, but you want to win more of them than you don't. So there's a little less pressure knowing that, hey, we're in good shape going into free agency. We don't have to do too much. You don't have to be super active. So that's nice. Different from years past.
You mentioned the All-Stars. How difficult is it keeping 9 All-Stars on your roster year over year?
Yeah, I mean, with success and accolades becomes expectations of salaries, and so we definitely had a situation where some guys wanted to look and see what was out there, and expressed that they wanted to be back, but also they wanted it to work for them financially. It has to work for us financially. So there's a couple cases where guys wanted to go and wanted to see what was out there. You only get to play the game for a short period of time, so you you can't take it offensive. You want them all to sign back and sign right away, but they want to take a little bit of time and see what's out there, which is fine. But yeah, we were able to get them all back, which is great. And extending Roland was a big deal for us, and he expressed an interest that he wanted to extend his contract, and was able to work with us, and he did a nice job from extending it and getting him back for another year. So we added a year with him, which was nice. And we were able to get most of the guys that, I guess, everyone that we offered, we were able to get back.
Are you surprised by anyone that may have left?
We didn't lose anyone that we didn't offer. So we when you have good players, and I think it's something to be said about the number of our players that sign with other teams in off season is a credit to our personnel department and the job that they do. But ultimately, you kind of know what kind of range the players will be in, and how they're going to fit. And so, guys that are coming off of rookie contracts, if you're not able to provide them a raise that that fits where they should be, then you ultimately have to make decisions on where they fit on the roster, if you think you can fit them within the salary cap. So unfortunately, you do have to make tough decisions. And again, feel like there's a lot of good players that won't be back for us that unfortunately we just weren't able to sign. And you can only have one starter at each position, and so ultimately it leads to you losing some players that can happen in off season. But again, I think it's a nice job by our personnel department with the amount of our players that get signed on other teams. It's a credit to the work they do.
Now, this morning you were able to work a couple of deals in center. Sean McEwen, who spent the last number of years in Calgary with the Stampeders, all CFL designation. He was nominated as their most outstanding lineman. You also come to terms with running back Callan Laybourne. What do you see him as far as fitting into this roster?
He's a different style back, so had some experience playing in Ottawa and Toronto, and I thought he had a really good preseason in Toronto last year, and thought he was going to make the team. He actually pulled his hamstring on a fairly long run at the end of the preseason, and we actually explored bringing him in before Ottawa signed him last year. So when AJ was going through his injuries there, we explored bringing him in at that point, and but we were only able to offer a practice roster spot at that time. So he went to Ottawa, and we still like him as a player, and he's just a different style back than what we have. So wanted to create some great competition there, and that's why we signed him.
So if we're counting, and Colson, I don't know if this is your black book worthy about how many running backs would the Riders have in the backfield at the moment. Does that make 5 or 6 with the Callan Laybourne signing? Like where are we at here? Because let's go through this. So you have Arquel Armstead, you have Laybourne, you have AJ Ouellette, you have Bertrand Houdon. Who's that? Who's the college guy that we signed like a month and a half ago? Coming straight out of college. That would be 5. And we're still trying to figure out, like, Frankie Hickson is a free agent. Now, in J.O.'s interview there, he said that they got everybody back that they offered a contract to. So did you hear what I hear in the sense that Hickson isn't in the plans going forward if the signing hasn't been announced so far?
Yeah, pretty much. If they weren't offering these guys contracts, they're not in the grand scheme of things. That's for sure.
Yeah. So I'm just thinking. Do you have it in front of you there? Like, so we're a minimum 5 in the running back stable.
Yeah,
at the moment,
I
correct?
see AJ Ouellette, Raquel Armstead, Bertrand Houdon, Laborn, and Penix. So that was the 5.
Yes.
And then we
That's your
also
5.
have our fullbacks, Albert Awachi and Runge, who I'm not remembering that signing.
Okay. Now, at times last year, the Riders, the way that they constructed their roster, getting 2 backs on was tough. And then near the end of the season, they were able to do that. So I don't know if that means a change in offensive philosophy where there's always going to be 2 backs on there. Like if they are doing Thunder and Lightning. And J.O. did mention LeBourne, they gave him a look because of Ouellette's injuries. And that's the thing. Like, so is this now more of an insurance play, knowing what happened to AJ last year, going, we better have these guys around from the start of the season and try and stash them away if we can, because if we do run into this, as opposed to try and replace somebody in June, July, or August?
Yeah, it's definitely a smart play to have a little bit of contingency with your roster and having some faith in the next guy, because it's always next man up mentality. Yeah. And you want to have faith in the guy that's the next man up.
Probably also why we've got 12 offensive linemen listed right now.
Yeah.
It happened last year. Why not be ready ahead of time?
But here's the thing, and we talked about this on the show about 3 weeks ago. The silver lining from the 2024 season was the ability for that staff to go out to find so many able-bodied, ready-to-play CFL offensive linemen and then get them coached up. And this is where I'd say I would have changed my philosophy, because we were able to do it. We overcame the absolute worst-case scenario. And now, could you do it 2 years in a row? No, you don't want to test that. But that wasn't our biggest worry, to be like, we got a whole bunch of guys that got a chance to audition in Riderville that have proved, hey, if we need you, we can throw you in. And it's not a big a worry. It's funny. The big head scratcher of the day, we both talked about, I think all of us liked Miles Brown and what he did as a rider last year. And if he's going to go, but if you're the Stamps, why you're letting go of Sean McEwen? Like, sure, he was due a raise, but he's a Canadian offensive lineman and a 3-time All-Star, and he's a center, and he's healthy. What are you replacing him with? But that team, I think for the past couple of years, and obviously this year, they're off on the right foot. The Calgary Stampeders will be the head scratcher in the CFL. Okay, let's take a break. The weather is crazy. We'll get into that. And it's game night for the Regina Pats. We'll take a deeper dive into the Western Hockey League. Next, it's the all-new SportsCage streaming on X and on our YouTube channel at sportscage.com and on the radio, 620 CKRM. The Wednesday edition of the Sports Cage is brought to you by Regina Motor Products. The extreme cold warning is still in effect for southern Saskatchewan. The wind chill is the big story tonight, down to minus 33, with the wind chill making it feel like minus 47. Ouch. Tomorrow, sunny, warming up to minus 22, but the wind chill around minus 40-ish for most of the day. And if you're the Western Hockey League schedule maker and you're the Regina Pats, you're kind of getting a chance to escape this crazy weather because you're on a 4-game road trip in Alberta. There was 7 games in the Western Hockey League last night. Keats Fawcett had the lone goal. Pats lose 4-1 to the Red Deer Rebels. The Medicine Hat Tigers keep on rolling. They beat the Blades 5-3. Brandon beat Swift Current 7-4. The Calgary Hitmen, good game last night. They beat the Lethbridge Hurricanes. That's going to be a battle once the playoffs roll around. 3-2 in overtime. Pats Rebels, and then you had Tri-City beating Kamloops 4-1. The Spokane Chiefs beat the Wenatchee Wild 4-3. And then it was the Seattle Thunderbirds with a big 3-2 win over the Corona Rockets last night. It's Regina Pats game day. Bennett Dunlop Ford Pats hockey starts tonight, 7:30 with the pregame show from Edmonton. Dante DeCaria will have the call between the Edmonton Oil Kings and the Regina Pats. Face-off there will go at 8 o'clock before the road trip continues on Friday. They'll be in Lethbridge, and then Saturday night Medicine Hat. It doesn't get any easier from here for the Pats. All right, we're going to take a break. When we come back, a special Wednesday edition of Double Talk with Darian Durant. We'll get his thoughts on the Riders and what they've done in free agency. I know we kind of outlined a few things that he was looking for a few weeks ago. And his Philadelphia Eagles ended up beating the Kansas City Chiefs in the Super Bowl. He was right all along, but I want to ask him about the quarterback perspective and Jalen Hurts. We'll do that in minutes. It's the all-new Sports Cage on 620 CKRM. It's a Regina Pats game day. Bennett Dunlop Ford Pats hockey is on the air tonight, 7:30 with the pregame show live from Edmonton. Dante DeCaria will have the call between the Edmonton Oil Kings and the Regina Pats just after 8 o'clock tonight. It's hour 3 of the all-new Sports Cage. Maz filling in for Barney today. He'll be back in tomorrow. The extreme cold warning. 24 to 36 more hours of this at least. Tonight down to minus 33 with that wind chill. It'll feel like minus 47 tomorrow. Sunny with a high of minus 22. Wind chill about minus 35 to minus 44, they're saying. Bundle up. Minus 27 feels like minus 35 right now. All right, let's do this. It's a special Wednesday edition of the of Double Talk with Darian Durant as we bring in our two-time Grey Cup champion and Plaza of Honor quarterback of the Saskatchewan Roughriders, Darian. It's brought to you by Campbell Safety. Do you know if your workplace has a proper safety program? If not, call Campbell Safety. Darian, we'll start here. You said last week in your prediction that the Philadelphia Eagles were going to win the Super Bowl because they were going to come out and be that much better than the Chiefs. I know you were pulling for the Eagles, but were even you surprised on just how dominant a win that ended up being?
You know what? I wasn't. I mean, this is just what I thought. I compared it to our 2013 team when Corey Sheets came in, and you know, I compare him to Saquon Barkley and the impact that a running back of that caliber can add to your team. And then, you know, when you can put points on the board as an offense and your defense is getting 2 and 3 and outs and taking the ball away and making it easier for your offense and getting them more possessions, you know, that Eagle team just reminded me so much of our 2013 team. So I just had a feeling that they were the more superior team. They were better at pretty much every position. And I had a pretty good feeling that the game would turn out this way.
Well, I thought we knew Philadelphia was good and we thought they would play well. I don't think anybody expected for Kansas City to play that bad. They just never got anything going. Probably one of the neat storylines coming out of the game is Jalen Hurts, who I think has carried himself with class even since college. So back in 2018, he gets replaced at halftime in the college football championship and Tua takes over and they win. And then Tua Tagovailoa and rises to fame and all of that. He transfers schools, he leaves Alabama, and he has to go to Oklahoma. And then he gets drafted in the NFL, and then they go to the Super Bowl and they end up losing. To see him win, because you've played the position at quarterback, it's either all of the glory or all of the blame. And he just handled it with class. He had a moment after that game, and he could have been like, I told you, but he didn't. He thanked God, he thanked his teammates, and he just seems like just such a good guy.
And he's battle tested. I mean, if you look at, you know, the stops that he's made throughout his career, just starting at Alabama, just that fan base and the expectations that they put on you and, you know, the prestige of that university, you know, he dealt with a lot of scrutiny there. And then he goes to Oklahoma, which is another top tier program, and they have winning expectations as well. And he did a great job there. And then he goes to the, you know, one of the craziest fan bases in the NFL. And, you know, he goes to the Super Bowl within his first couple years. He gets a contract extension. A lot of people feel like he didn't deserve it. And, but Philadelphia knew that he was their guy. He was the guy who has been through all of these stops. He's been through all of the trials and tribulations of, you know, being talked about as not being good enough, can't throw well enough. He's battle tested, man, and I'm just so happy that he was able to go out and perform and make the throws that was needed. You know, Kansas City's defense loaded up the box for Saquon Barkley, and they dared Jalen Hurts to throw the ball, and he did a great job. So, like I said, he's battle tested. I'm proud of him, and you know, that's just a true example of a guy who just fights through everything. Doesn't matter what people say, and it's all about winning.
I had said on the show Monday that a lot of the guys coming out of Alabama, especially the quarterbacks, they get an unfair rough ride. They had the best coach in college football in Nick Saban, and yet everybody kind of wants to hate on him. So yeah, he battled adversity and he came through. And you're right, Philly's a tough city. They can eat you up and spit you out pretty quick. And when things didn't go well, and he did, I think having that offensive line and most of the team being young and signed, I think Philly's going to be a force to reckon with for years to come. Curtis, do we have this ready to go? The best part about the past couple of days is on social media, some of the funny things that are coming out. There's a guy that managed to write a Philadelphia Eagles song. Curtis, do you want to roll this? I don't know.
Kansas City is a dynasty no more. happen on Sunday. Patrick Mahomes, he hasn't seen this before. In the pocket, he looks so uncomfy. Oh, and every time you turn around, another sack. You ought to know by now. Now who needs a Burrow to a Herbert or Love? My QB is chilling at Disney. Whoa, the Eagles took belt to ass, and that's what it's all about. Good run from the Chiefs, but you just got blown out. You got blown out. Candy Andy.
Nice. You gotta love that. That's some creativity. When you could take a Billy Joel song and turn that's a ditty. In your time playing for the Riders, did anybody ever make you a song or send anything your way musical?
Oh man, there were a couple songs that were made, especially when we were, known as Canadian Air Force. They put some lyrics about, touchdown passes to Fantus and Bag and those guys, Claremont, when he was with us. So, yeah, I just can't remember the lyrics, though. But I'm not a good singer, so it wouldn't sound good anyway.
I'm just trying to figure out what rhymes with Claremont. There's not like if you're a songwriter, I don't know that or what rhymes with Fantus. Like same thing. Like you got your work cut out for you. All right, so a little closer to home. Speaking of the CFL. The tampering window ended. Free agency officially started yesterday at 11 a.m. and a lot of the moves, not tons of surprises. The Riders went out today and they signed Sean McEwen, a 3-time All-Star, he's played, I believe, in Toronto. He's played in Calgary. Are you surprised how could the Calgary Stampeders let this guy walk away? He's been nothing but an All-Star for the past 3 years. Darian, nobody knows better than you how hard good Canadian offensive linemen are to find. So to let somebody like this walk away, is this a bit of a head scratcher to you too?
A little bit, it is. But, if you look at Calgary and their history, their past, they do a great job at bringing up old linemen off their practice squad or bringing in guys that you've never heard of, and they turn into all-stars. There's a lot of turnover in the Calgary offensive line meeting room. You've seen that throughout the year. So it's a little bit head scratching with the accolades that he has, but knowing Calgary and knowing how Huff and Dickey work, it's not that surprising.
Okay. Yeah, like I'd mentioned earlier in the show, maybe they have his replacement ready to go. Just the same thing. We've never heard of him before, but they're fully confident that they can lock and load for the upcoming season. Kalen LeBourne also joins Rider Nation today. Played the preseason in Toronto. J.O. said because of an injury, they had interest when Ajoulette got hurt, but all they could offer was a practice roster spot. He ends up signing with Ottawa. So now that makes 5 running backs that the Riders have. And last year, it was a struggle to get 2 backs on the roster. Do you think there's chess pieces here? Like we don't see fully all the moves yet, but they needed to stock up now for maybe what may play out down the road?
Yeah, I think so. And I think the style of play that the Riders are adapting to and the injuries that impacted that offense last season at the running back position and at O-line. Michael Johnson had to come in at O-line one game because they were devastated with injuries. You have to have depth. So, with Jeremy being a former O-lineman himself, he knows how important it is to have that depth, quality players in case guys go down. I don't know if Philip Blake is coming back to, he's an older guy and, he's been injury prone. So I think that you have to stack up with some of these younger guys, more reliable guys who can, get through a season and who understand what it takes, especially if guys get hurt, guys that are ready to step in and play right away.
Philip Gagnon from Montreal and the Alouettes, 9-year CFLer coming to town. That's a big man with a lot of experience.
Yeah.
It hasn't been the splash. It hasn't been the Edmonton Eskimo or Hamilton Ticats splashy free agency period, but just kind of quietly, things are coming together with this rider roster. On the Gagnon front, are you thumbs up with him becoming part of Rider Nation?
Absolutely. I had a chance to play with Gags in Montreal, on my way out. And, as a young guy, he was just a beast. He's nasty. He's physical. He's everything that Jeremy would want in the old lineman. Gags brings that to the team. So, a lot of these moves aren't your so-called sexy free agent signings, but he's doing a good job of just building depth because, those injuries just devastated the old line last year. And, even with AJ, he didn't make it through the season. He was banged up. So you're going to need some quality guys behind him. And I think that lack of running game with the Riders last year, it was critical because, Winnipeg was able to just sit back in the playoffs and just play the pass. And, there wasn't really much of a threat of a run game.
We lost Miles Brown today. He signed with the Calgary Stampeders. I thought last year, by the end of the season, Miles Brown was really coming into his own and he was becoming a force. Like he was blowing up plays and he was, obviously with everything that went on and all the attention with the fines and all of that stuff. But when he was on the field, his body of work stood out. To me, he was one of the most improved riders from training camp until the end of the season. Did you see that as well in his play?
Absolutely. He became a disruptive force. Even though some things were questionable, I think that he would have been a good piece to bring back and to continue to see his growth. But, you can't bring everyone back. I think there were some key pieces with Marcus Sales and getting Micah Johnson re-signed and getting Roland Milligan re-signed. I think those were the main things that, that's the main priority, right? You have to get these guys back in the fold. You have to keep that chemistry going. And I'm sure guys took a little bit of a pay cut to make sure that they could continue to build that chemistry. I mean, you need more than 1 year together as a core in order to build, that toughness, that edge, everything you need to be successful in the playoffs. So to be able to run it back with your core guys going into year 2, I think is very important for the Riders.
Now, when you were playing, obviously you're the leader of the team, you're the starting quarterback. When free agency would roll around, was it asked of you or did you take it upon yourself? Would you reach out to the new guys that were joining the team, whether it's through text or a phone call, just to say, hey, welcome. If you need anything, here's Luke's house. You can stay there as long as you want, like all of that kind of stuff. Like, were you part of the welcoming committee to the new guys?
Of course. I mean, you want guys to feel at home. You want guys to feel like they're a part of the team immediately. I mean, some free agents come in and, they walk on eggshells a little bit. You don't know anyone. You haven't spoken with anyone since you signed. So you want to break that ice a little bit, talk to the guys, let them know that you're there. And it makes the transition easier, especially the guys who've been with one organization for, 4, 5, 6 years. And now you're starting all over. It's tough. So you want to, be that welcome piece and make sure those guys are, they feel like they're at home with their new squad.
Because you had to go through it as well. What was it like when you go to Montreal? Like, explain that and what you went through, because you're living what everybody else is living right now.
Yeah, well, it was a little bit different for me. I mean, there were guys like S.J. Green, Chip Cox, Bear Woods, John Bowman, Ryan Phillips, so many, Stefan Logan, so many veteran guys that I knew, just battling against those guys over the years that, it made it a little bit easier. Myself and Ryan Phillips, both coming from our respective teams, being there for over 10 years, having pretty much the same story of being let go and, told we're too old and looking for new beginnings and hoping that you can, revamp your career somewhere else. So it's a little bit different for me going in. These guys are young. These guys haven't spent 10, 11, 12 years in one place and, are trying to start over, so to speak. These guys are in their prime and, they're looking for championships. So it's a little bit different for them.
Well, I know. And everybody says it. Oh, I'm really looking forward to playing in Rider Nation. Oh, yeah, no, it's always great to come here as a visitor or whatever. But as we've talked about on this show before, they really don't have any idea what it's like. Like we said, Saskatchewan is great when you're on the football team and you're winning and the weather is warm. But if it's February and it's minus 40 with the wind chill and you haven't won a Grey Cup in a while, everybody gets a little antsy. It just kind of happens, and it works out that way. So far, we didn't sign the big ticket game breaker, field stretching wide receiver. If that doesn't come to fruition, do you think the Keyshawn Johnson and Dante Myers of the world can take those next steps to kind of grow into that? Because we kind of know what Emelis and Kean Schaefer-Baker are, but those would be sort of the untapped, I would say, quantities or entities in the Riders wide receiving core?
Yeah, well, they're going to have to. They're going to have to take the next step. Especially we don't know how Sean Bain is recovering or what's the timetable looking like for his return. And with Jared Stearns going to Winnipeg, these guys are going to have to step up right away. And luckily for them, they had plenty of playing time last year. They know the system. They get to come to camp and not learn. When you're learning in training camp, it's hard for you to play full speed. So with the guys having a year under their belt with the system, it makes coming into training camp that much easier. And the offense can pretty much, pick up from where they left off in the West Final and be able to build even more and more chemistry. So I think it's a good move to keep the core guys together. And, I like Keyshawn Johnson. I think, he's shown the ability to be a big play guy and get behind defenses. And, I'm sure, that drop in the final hurt him, and he'll be coming back ready to go.
Another big move this week, the Riders ended up signing Tommy Stevens, who's a tank of a man at 6'4", 245. He's completed 61 of 63 short yardage plays in the CFL, coming over from the Calgary Stampeders, which meant Shea Patterson was expendable, and he ends up signing with the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. Oh, it's this play right here. It's funny, in the Riders highlight pack, Curtis, they don't include this play. Out of all the Tommy Stevens plays that they're putting out there, you don't put it against the home team. Do you like this move? If you're swapping out third down quarterbacks, a Stevens for Patterson, is this a move that you would make if you're J.O.?
Absolutely. I think this is a very great decision by Jeremy O'Day. You look at the Philadelphia Eagles in that tush push, and it's a 90% rate. Well, so is a Tommy Stevens quarterback sneak. He just has shown the ability to get first downs, to get touchdowns when it's needed, and that's going to put points on the board. And with Jake Mayer coming in, Shea Patterson became a little bit expendable. And, so it's good to bring in a third down guy who can come in and just get pretty much a guaranteed first down with this guy. He's a big man. And, there's an art to quarterback sneaks, and he's pretty much perfected it.
Okay, but as someone who played the position, did you like being taken out of the football game, or do you want to stay in for as many plays as possible and you get those first downs or those touchdowns, like when you're in the red zone? Because now a lot of it is like, no, starting quarterback out, short yardage in. Like that, you kind of want to be the guy, right?
Well, a 27-year-old Darian Durant didn't mind, but a 36-year-old Darian Durant, didn't want to take those hits on the quarterback sneak. So, you look at Trevor, there's no need to put those extra hits on him. He's a very efficient passer. You want his shoulders and his neck and his upper torso area to be protected. So, what better guy to bring in than a guy who's pretty much guaranteed. So this is a good move for J.O., and it also protects Trevor.
Well, one of the things that you had said, and I think a lot of Rider fans, we got to think that when they get to training camp, it's a continuation of last year. It's not a fresh start like last year was. Whole new coaching staff, all these new players. Yeah, there's going to be some new guys that are going to have to fit in, but the core of the team is coming back and firing on hopefully all of those cylinders. So you can kind of be like, and with Winnipeg having they have the same head coach, but they're going to have a new offensive coordinator. For as much talent as the Edmonton Eskimos have brought in, you still have a whole new coaching staff there. BC, you've got change. You've got it all over the place. Like, I think Ottawa is poised to potentially have a good start to the season just because of Bob Dice and the continuity there. you'd have to think that Hamilton will start better. The continuity, the coaching with Bo Levi and all of that. Toronto, the same thing. And as you know this, stacking those wins early, because they all get hard in late October and early November. And, where every inch matters. Absolutely. And so I think it's funny. The flashes were made early, as they usually are. And they say you can't win a Grey Cup in February. You can potentially lose one by what you're doing. But as you've seen before, flashy doesn't always let you hoist the championship trophy in November in the CFL.
Absolutely. You have to have a core, right? These O-line and D-line signings, these guys aren't well known. We know that, and I think that's why it's not a sexy thing when you hear the Riders sign 2 O linemen, or they bring in, a D lineman like Shane Ray or Rose or anybody like that. It's not sexy. It's not going to push the headlines, but what he's building with the offensive, defensive lines are very, very important. And we all saw the Super Bowl, right? We all saw what the Philadelphia Eagles D line did to that Kansas City offensive line. And if you have some guys that can get after the passer, you don't have to blitz. You can just rush 4 and send them after the quarterback, and you're able to create pressure, then it's a win. So we'll see when it's time to put on the pads how this pans out. But right now, I think he's doing a great job of controlling the trenches.
Nice. All right. It's Double Talk, the special Wednesday edition with Darian Durant. Because of the holiday on Monday, we'll have you back on Tuesday. It's for CampbellSafety.com. Have yourself a great weekend. It's Valentine's Day. Have you done your shopping for the wife and the daughters yet? And if you haven't, listen, the Amazon does amazing things these days. Where's Absolutely. Darian in the romance department? Are the flowers already ordered and the card already written out?
Not yet. I'm a procrastinator. I'm a last minute guy. And but I will take care of all my girls, all 4 of them, and I'm looking forward to it. It's always good to show love. I'm running around a lot. I don't get a chance to be as affectionate as I would like, so I'm looking forward to this Valentine.
I know. So you got 4 Valentines in your house. I got 3. I got 2 girls and a wife. So hey, I'm right there with you. As always, we love catching up with you. We'll grab some time on Tuesday. It's Double Talk on the all new SportsCage. Oh, here we are. Oh, there he is. There's coming out of the tunnel.
Nice.
Like gangbusters. You're not going to tell Darian Durant that he's not bringing his whole team out as a group. Look at that. It's time to take a break. It's the all-new SportsCage, brought to you by Regina Motor Products. Dents or dings? Visit the RMP SGI-accredited full-service collision center and body shop. Regina Motor Products. Book today. Saskatchewan AAA Midget Hockey League. Big game last night, and there's action tonight. The Regina Pat Canadians win again. We'll get into that and more next. It's the all-new SportsCage, streaming on X and on our YouTube channel at sportscage.com and on the radio at 620 CKRM. The show is brought to you by the Canadian Brew House. It's Wing Wednesdays. They're unbelievable or unbeatable. The Canadian Brew House, only 69 cents each, and a mountain of flavors to savor and a flavor of the month. You can do that wing thing every Wednesday at Canadian Brew House. I'm assuming that it's going to be packed tonight, as even with the weather, people are going to be out watching the Four Nations Cup, Canada, Sweden. You've got a 7 o'clock face-off. Eric Francis thinks, he didn't want to say it because he said he didn't want his house burned down, but Sweden maybe pull an upset, but for political purposes, he said Canada wins tonight, but he's worried. 3-2. Saskatchewan Midget AAA. There was 3 games last night. The Regina Pat Canadians taking on the Moose Jaw Warriors. Jonas Sivertson had 2 goals and assists as the Pat Canadians ended up beating the Warriors 3-2. Now, Maddox Schultz obviously is the star of the league and is the talk. Where is he going to be drafted into the Western Hockey League? Jonas Sivertson is already property of the Prince Albert Raiders and has had a really outstanding second half of the season here. He is on a bit of a heater, as the kids would say. So the Pat Canadians with that win last night are in first place with 31 wins and 64 points. Moose Jaws in second, 28 wins and 59 points. And Swift Currents in third with 28 wins and 56 points. Also last night, The Estevan Bears beat Notre Dame 5-4 in overtime, and the Orkton Maulers beat the Tisdale Trojans 2-1. 2 games tonight. You got the PA Mintos at the Battleford North Stars and the Saskatoon Blazers taking on the Warman Wildcats. Prairie Junior Hockey League, 2 games tonight. The PA Timberjacks are in Saskatoon to take on the Quakers, and the Regina Silver Foxes making the roadie to Pilot Butte to take on the Storm. Stay warm, especially if you're the parents of the fan club and you're driving out there as well. Western Hockey League tonight. What are we looking at? We got 3 games. We got Medicine Hat in Prince Albert. And although Medicine Hat completely expected with Gavin McKenna and the roster they have to be where they are in first place, that's not a shock. The Prince Albert Raiders, I think to a lot of people in this second half of the season have really come on and started playing some great hockey. What are they in, like third place? Fourth in the Eastern Conference with 60 points. So that Medicine Hat PA game at the Art Hauser, that's going to be a good game. You got Red Deer at Lethbridge, and then the Pats are in Edmonton tonight to take on the Oil Kings. We've got that game here for you on 620 CKRM. Pre-game show at 7:30, and we'll go play-by-play with Dante DeCarry at 8 o'clock. Now, this was up on the Western Hockey League socials yesterday. If the season were to end today, this is the playoff scenarios. And if you're watching the stream, we'll start Western Conference. You'd have Everett, Seattle/Wenatchee. You'd have Victoria, Tri-City. You'd have Spokane, Vancouver, and you'd have Prince George and Portland. But over here in the Eastern Conference, 1-8 would be the Medicine Hat Tigers taking on the Swift Current Broncos. And although Medicine Hat, I would say, don't take anything away from the Broncos. Somebody is ripe for an upset, and it always happens. 2-7 would be the Prince Albert Raiders in the 2 spot taking on the Brandon Wheat Kings. Now, is Brandon better than that 7 spot? I think they are, but that's just where they slot at the moment. Calgary Hitmen, Edmonton Oil Kings, 3-6. This would be the one that kind of worries you. Now, the Hitmen are playing well, but so are the Oil Kings. Maybe now with Calgary and that roster they have, they're expected to win, and they're having a really good year. But the Oil Kings, the 4-5 probably would be the biggest worry, because if you're the Lethbridge Hurricanes, you have this stacked roster. You've gone out, you've given up the farm, and you're going all in. You're taking on the number 5 Saskatoon Blades, who are playing plucky hockey. The record doesn't look like it once did early on in the season, but solid. Something there is turning into an upset. Colson, out of all of those teams there, if you had to pick something in the Eastern Conference, which is the one that scares you? Like the Medicine Hat Swift Current one, I think just because of proximity, and then that Saskatoon Lethbridge one, that somebody's dreams are getting crushed and somebody's heart's getting broken in that first round.
Yeah, I haven't been paying super close attention to them, so I don't know off the top of my head, but I do know that I pay a little closer attention to Calgary because Tanner Howe went there, and I know they've pulled some tough ones out lately, as well as just having blowouts. So they're the ones that I kind of know the most about. Not that I know much about any of them, but I think Calgary's would be my pick as the kind of the scariest one over there.
It's great when it works out, when you cash in all of your chips and your prospects and all your draft picks, and it goes on and you end up in the Memorial Cup. But if the gamble doesn't pay off and then the cupboards are bare and you end up losing out, then you've got to start all over again. And it's funny, I was chatting about this, I think, with Barney, because I asked him about Sivertson from the Pac Canadians, and I said, oh no, he's property of the Prince Albert Raiders. And then he was up, and now he's come back and he's really turned it on. And the big question in all of this, and the Saskatchewan Junior Hockey, is where's Maddox Schultz going to end up? He could potentially be an Edmonton Oil King. He could potentially be a Regina Pat. Now, put your owner hat on. If you run the Pats, how important is it to get hometown kid Maddox Schultz as part of that club and sell some tickets and put some people in the Brandt Center?
I'd say it's pretty important. It's definitely a crowd drawer, you know. Yeah, you want the kid from the city that's a superstar to play in that barn. Like, you don't want to be like, oh man, Maddox Schultz, the Regina kid, I can't wait to see him when he's coming from Edmonton. Like, no, it would be really nice.
2 or 3 times a year.
Yep, it would be really nice if he could be playing on the Pats. Like, just, I mean, the cookie will crumble one way or another, and we'll see what happens. But if I was the owner of the Regina Pats, I would definitely try to do everything in my power to bring him here, but you can't guarantee it per se.
I also don't think you have that kind of money, Curtis.
I wish I had that kind of money. I wish.
Oh, yeah.
Well, I mean, if a lot of people were wondering when he's playing AAA hockey, will it be able to translate? Because there's a lot of kids that are 13 and 14, they play great in their bantam or whatever. Oh, but then they move up a level. Well, then, okay. No, it seems to be translating real well, which would lead you to believe there's no reason that when he goes to the Western Hockey League that this won't continue on and down the path. And that if everything, knock on wood, goes well for him, the trajectory is nothing but success. And there's a ton of factors that matter because entertainment dollars are spread out thinner than ever before. There's more options for us. So now, here's the thing. This kid seems to be a proven commodity. Giving up a bunch of picks of you don't know how it's going to turn out, I'm all for that. And I'm for that in any sport. There's a lot of first round duds in any sport. You have something legit here. So I'm not sure what Edmonton's asking price is if they're the ones holding the cards at the moment, but that you'd be willing to go all in. Now, keep in mind, if it's going to come down to the end of the season and how it's all going to boil down to how the pick system is going to go. But I'd be in for whatever the asking price is to be like, all right, for at least the next 3 years, we know we got something we can market around and we build off this.
Yeah, it comes down to the end of the season, so we won't really know till then, but it's partially the lottery, partially where you finish in the end of the year. I know a little bit of that. Yeah. So, if Edmonton finishes lower than us, they have a higher chance of getting the first pick, would be the simple understanding. I know they have traded some first-round picks and have received some in trades, and so have we. So it's more complicated than that now. But, yeah, and the thing to remember with Maddox, too, is he's already playing a year up and leading that league. He gets drafted here. He's still not going to play here for another year and a bit. He'll play a few games, but he's already playing so high above his level. If he struggles, that's fine. Like, the kid would be 14, 15, playing against 19 and 20-year-olds. Any kid in any sport's going to struggle with that, right? Especially when it comes to a physical sport like hockey. So you got to give him a little space with that one. But still, he's been lighting it up, and he's playing a year up already. So it's a pretty safe assumption to see that he's going to do good.
And that's why I'm okay giving away a bunch of first-round picks if that's what you have to do, because you're already seeing it. He's playing up, he's playing AAA or whatever, and he's dominating. And keep in mind, and is the word dominating overused or whatever, but he's dominating. Like, he's leading the league in scoring. He doesn't shy away from the play when he plays or whatever. So there's no reason why that wouldn't translate to the next level. And he's a legit commodity. A pick on paper that there's no name or face to it yet, where you've got this, where it's with the Pats and what they're doing with this young team that they're building around this generation. So you got a bunch of 16s and 17s and 18s. When he comes in for where they want to be in 2 to 3 years, like, if you don't make this move now, I don't necessarily know who else is coming down the pipeline that can have sort of that same effect. No one thinks that anybody can be the next Connor Bedard, but if there's somebody close, he's probably it right now, unless there's somebody on a radar that we just haven't seen yet. And the fact that he's a homegrown kid, that's
just the cherry.
Put your chips in now. Yeah.
That's the whipped cream and the sprinkles and
icing on the cake.
Yeah, it's really nice looking dessert.
I'm hungry. Thanks.
Well, I mean, keep keep in mind, look at the Moose Jaw Warriors last year and how far that they got, and look at the season they have. Because, like I said, you get rid of everything because you go all in, and then next year, and you get rid of the few good players that you have, and then you're going to have to battle through this, and you kind of need some light at the end of the tunnel. It looks like that Maddox Schultz is that light at the end of the tunnel, and from what we've seen, and it doesn't look like they'll be slowing down. And like you had said, even if he still is playing AAA, if he's part of the Pats, and he could be any team, you get to play X amount of games as a call-up, and how much more convenient is it if he's here and he's playing for the Pats C's, and then he can get his call-up games in as well, so he can kind of be, nicely layered into the Western Hockey League game without sort of that crash course that some of the players have to get. I think a lot of us are waiting for Canada-Sweden tonight at the Bell Center. It's so funny. If you're Eric's son and dad is taking you to these events, Colson, I'm going to say, does that set the bar high as far as what a good night of entertainment is when dad is taking you to one of the most sought after hockey events and you're 14 or 15 years old?
Yeah, that's probably setting the bar a little high. Like, for me, my highlight was going to the 2013 Grey Cup with my dad, right? And I'm not expecting to go to that every single year, every single other year, especially with all the unique situations there, riders playing at home, last Grey Cup and Old Mosaic, all that stuff, right? So I know that that's probably top 3 event of my life, right? I'm not expecting that to happen again. But yeah, that bar is a little high if you're Eric's son in this situation, getting to go to the foreign nations, just kind of piggybacking along.
Now, Curtis, I had asked you guys before the show because Valentine's Day is on Friday, and I wanted to know. Now, Colson, are you set, or where are you at with this Valentine's thing? Because Curtis has a bit of a story. So where are you?
So
you're nowhere, okay, but go on and tell us how and why.
Yeah. No, I have a few things planned, just simple things, because my wife told me 2 months ago to not plan anything this Saturday. And so I'm expecting she's got a delayed present that I am yet to find out about. I know there's driving involved, so it's some kind of road trip thing, but she's taken the reins on this one. But I've got some little surprises for her still planned. And I know she's listening right now, probably, so I'm not going to share them.
So she told you Saturday something's happening, but you just don't know what.
Yep. I know driving to Saskatoon is involved, and that's all I got. So we'll see. It'll be fun. It's first year of marriage, right?
Oh, the first year of marriage. Colson, there's nothing better. Everything is funny. The jokes are all being laughed at. Everything is forgiven.
Like I said,
it's bliss. Enjoy the bliss. Curtis, bit of a different situation. Now, you said you wanted to do something kind of romantic maybe, but there's a passport situation involved here and a lack of a passport.
Whoa. Before we get into it, like, you're telling me you're not bringing your kids to the four nations and taking them to the hockey game and giving them treats, something to remember, Maz?
Listen, four nations, you'd be lucky if I take the kids to Five Guys over the next couple of days or whatever. If we're talking about numbered events here, there is
Five Guys at a Pats game, eh?
Ooh, yeah. Five Guys at a Pats game.
That's pretty good. Yes. So weird situation for me. My girlfriend doesn't live in the same province as me. I do a long distance. So
nice.
She's never been anywhere like tropical or anything like that. Like, probably the furthest she's been from home is maybe like Chicago. So it's like, but never like a tropical vacation. So I was thinking like, oh, maybe I should plan like a trip or something. Not necessarily for Valentine's Day, but anniversary's around the corner. But she doesn't have a passport. And it's like,
that's tough.
Who doesn't have a passport? Apparently the one person I want to travel with doesn't. Yeah,
without a passport, obviously if you're thinking south and tropical, Weyburn may be the only option or whatever, because I mean it is south of Regina, but I don't necessarily know how much more tropical it's going to get. So your heart's in the right spot, just she doesn't have a passport.
Yeah.
And,
And you know what? She was going to go and apply for her passport. And then she's looking everywhere for her documents. She doesn't know where her birth certificate is. Where could it be? Where is it? Oh, where when was the last time you had it? And it's like, oh, I usually keep it in the cupboard above the fridge in a Ziploc bag. Sorry, you keep all your important documents in a Ziploc bag above the fridge? Like, I'm a young adult. She's a young adult. You know, we don't necessarily have a lot of life skills. You know, we're still learning. We're gaining our experience. But even I know that's not the play. But turns out when she moved, she left it above my fridge. She didn't take it when she moved, so I still have her birth certificate. So at least I found it.
Well, if you are looking, if you're looking for that tropical vacation, there's still time for Eric to adopt you, because if you missed Eric's interview, you can always go back and catch the podcast at sportscage.com. So not only are him and his son in Montreal for the Four Nations Cup to watch the game tonight and then Canada USA on Saturday, from there they're going on a week-long vacation to Mexico, where they're going to be staying at a really nice, I'm assuming, a 5-star resort. So Curtis, if you could maybe crash in with them, you'll get your you'll find out when you'll find out after the show when you shoot him a text.
Papers. No, that's what I need to know.
Yeah. We'll do that.
Oh boy.
So,
do you think Curtis Francis rolls off the tongue? Good.
just play it up when you go through Mexican immigration. Just say it like you've been saying it for the past 27 years. All right, we're going to take our final break and come back. We're going to wrap the show. If you're a big eat at Costco person, something happened earlier this week that may affect your bank account and your appetite. We'll explain more. It's the all-new SportsCage on the home of the Saskatchewan Roughriders, 620 CKRM. The extreme cold warning is still in effect for pretty much all of Saskatchewan. Tonight down to minus 33 with the wind chill, making it feel like minus 47. Tomorrow, sunny, warming up to minus 22, but with the wind chill, making it feel like minus 37. Here's the thing, Double C's, and I don't get this. I have some neighbors, and we live on a cul-de-sac, that they have a double garage attached to their house, but they park both vehicles outside. And when they open their garage door, all you see is junk, like cardboard boxes, nothing of significance that would mean that you couldn't park in there, especially when the weather gets like this. That's why you have a garage, right? The day that we couldn't park both of our vehicles in a garage, and it's going to be minus 40 something, is the day I go on a Harvard Media auction and I get one of those garbage bin companies to come drop off, and I'm loading her all up, and we're clearing things out.
Yeah, well,
like,
not
that's
everyone
nuts.
has
if you
a heated garage, Maz. Not everyone lives in the palace that is the McFly house, you know?
Well, no, I'm not talking heated, but just an insulated garage. Like, there's a lot of people that have garages, and then when they open the door, you look and going, it's just full of junk. Like, there's some sort of unused fitness equipment in there. There's cardboard boxes, a drum kit, some of the kids' bikes. And I'm like, especially like this.
You can put the car outside, but you're not going to put the drum kit outside and the used elliptical. Where are you going to put those?
I know, but
that's
if
for your empty garage.
If no one's using the elliptical, as opposed to, so you've got people, they're running extension cords outside to their vehicle, yet they have a garage that they could park in. Nobody likes scraping windows, do they? Like, maybe, I don't know, just me. So in looking for things to talk about on the show today, this caught me because I know that. Now, are you guys hot dog people? Like, are you big, like, do you like hot dogs? You're big, like, you're okay? Yeah. Like, it's not a.
No, more of a burger guy.
I'd take a burger over a hot dog every time.
Well, me too. But let's say you're at Costco and it's $1.50 for a dog and a pop, and you're hungry.
Every once in a while.
You're in?
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. Okay. So
good deal.
Big Costco news. Richard Galanti, the chief financial officer of Costco, the guy who championed and fought for the $1.50 hot dog and drink, retired last week.
Uh-oh.
Oh, dear.
Oh, no.
So this has always been a lost leader for the company, and many people are worried now that he's gone, this could kill that deal. where they would raise the price because they have had staunch arguments apparently at their head office in Washington about keeping it at $1.50 no matter how much money they lose because it draws people in. But now that this guy is gone and retired, that they could be raising the price. Just putting it out there. So if you're one of those people that loves the $1.50 dog and
I didn't
pop,
want to hear that the hot dog hero is now officially gone, Maz. You just ruined my day.
Oh, and here's the other thing, too. If you're a bit of everybody has a favorite type of pop. It was announced a couple weeks ago that Costco is switching back to Coke from Pepsi. For the past 10 years, Pepsi has had the contract at their food courts. Woo! And so now they're going back to that. All right. As we wrap the show here, how much time? We got a couple minutes left. The Riders were busy in free agency today, signing Sean McEwen. The 31-year-old comes to Rider Nation as a 3-time All-Star, most recently spending 5 years with the Calgary Stampeders. He's good. Mm-hmm. Really good. Callum Laybourne joins the Riders as the 5th running back, which will add depth to the running back room, according to Jeremy O'Day. And he says he's a different kind of back. He's a bigger guy, but he's more of a speed guy as opposed to an AJ Ouellette ground and pound. So we'll see. All right, Double C's, thanks for all your help today. Darian Durant, Eric Francis, Cody Janzen's our guests on the show. If you missed any of their interviews, you can always catch the podcast, Apple, Spotify, and it's all neatly wrapped up for you at sportscage.com. Have a great night. Go Canada. Barney is back in tomorrow. It's the all-new Sports Cage on 620 CKRM.